This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Very good morning to you. Welcome to The Situation Room. Everybody's in the room this morning. C.T. Muga, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Yes, how was it?
The night was quiet. It being the morning, it is dark and bright as always. So it is fine.
It being the day, you hope it will be good.
It being the rest of the day, I believe it will be good.
Right.
Yes.
And Jerry Thorne.
Good morning.
How are you?
Very good, thanks.
Bright and
As usual.
And sharp and what else?
Happy.
And happy, yes. And Ndu Oko.
Good morning, Eric. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
You see, it's a trend now.
Thank you very much. You picked it up nicely. Cotton. You had a good day?
Yes, I did.
A lot happened yesterday. We discussed some of it yesterday. We predicted what was going to happen.
And voila.
It happened. And now, let's actually report on it this morning. Start with that. Kibra.
However small, Kimanda backs ODM candidate for Kibra seat. Nominated MP says more Jubilee MPs will back Raila choice in the spirit of handshake, despite the fact that the ruling party has a candidate in the by-election. We saw that happening, despite the endorsement of the president the day before yesterday of McDonald Mariga for the Kibra by-election. It seems that we asked the question yesterday, what would happen now with the likes of Maina Kamanda? And he's basically said, look, I still remain in this position where I've said before that I will back the ODM candidate. And he reaffirms that position by saying, yes, I will back him, regardless of what happened the day before yesterday.
So he went to visit the ODM leader, Raila Odinga. And he was not alone, despite the the photo showing only him and ODM leaders. He wasn't the only person, actually, from my Jubilee Brigade who was there. There were some other senior level members of ODM, rather of Jubilee, who were there. But this is it. So a Jubilee MP is going to support an ODM candidate and say, well, yeah, as a party we have a candidate, but I don't think that that candidate is the right person for the seat.
It's interesting because he also says that you will see, and I quote, you will see other MPs come out to support Imran because of the peace we have witnessed as a country. I am here as a person, not representing anybody, said Kamanda. He stressed that his support was a show of appreciation for the easing of tensions due to the truce between Uhuru and Raila.
Handshake reloaded.
Here we go. Yep.
Handshake
Part
2.0.
2.0. Here we go.
Kita eleweka.
You know, this is actually very good news. When people jump party lines and make jumping party line statements, this is good for the country. Yes, it means we've entered a totally new era. And this era that people have hankered for and hoped for, where people will actually look at issues. These things begin with small things like this, little tiny steps, even if he retracts what he says later. But at least, yes.
What gives you the impression? Sorry, I've interrupted you as usual, but
No.
What gives you the impression that this is issue-based? This is simply a statement against Ruto, clearly.
But there is an issue.
Ruto is the issue.
Yes, there is an issue.
The issue is handshake.
Yes, there are issues
Right,
here. There
okay.
are issues here, yes.
But I think it's not the first time. We've seen party MPs rebel many times before
Like-
on various issues. When they're voting in parliament.
This is a false rebellion
Right.
because we all know what the party actually wants, what the helm wants. So things can be sort of symbolic in terms of the president looking like he's endorsing the candidate. Did he say he's endorsed him, or is it just a photo opportunity that's been amplified and blown out of proportion?
He did.
He said, "I endorse this
Go
candidate."
with my blessing now. for
Go with
November
my
7th.
blessing, yes. But is he there campaigning for him? That would be telling.
We'll see. We'll see if he
I don't
actually
think
does.
he'll be there.
We'll see.
He's being polite and respecting his party.
So we have a new initiative to amend the constitution. This constitution is going to get hammered from all sides.
Here we go. Another one thrown into the circus.
Yes, and this one is being led by the governors. And so in their push, which is called the Ugatuzi Initiative, it has radical proposals. Well, it goes with some of what people are expecting to see in the BBI, saying split state and government, have a president and two deputies, have a prime minister and two deputies, and then also gives more powers to the MCAs. Basically, it's sweetening the deal to MCAs. This is a popular initiative. So what they're doing is just like what Punguza Mzigo did. Not Punguza. The Third Way Alliance did with the Punguza Mzigo initiative. They are seeking at least 1 million signatures, which they'll take to the IEBC, and then the IEBC will verify the same process. It will go to the county assemblies.
And they're calling it the Ugatuzi
Ugatuzi
What does
Initiative.
Ugatuzi mean?
devolution.
Devolution.
Voila.
Ugatuzi.
This is good.
So we and then at the same time, the county assemblies forum met the day before yesterday, on the day we were discussing the Punguza Mzigo initiative, and they said, "Look, this Punguza Mzigo initiative, people don't understand it, so let's do this. All of us, let's agree as county assemblies. Let's suspend its debate first. Let's take it to the people. Let the people understand it. You know what they're doing? They are stalling. There's a constitutional timeline." By end of October, we should know what you think. And then they're saying, let's first of all take it to the people before we come and debate it in the assembly.
But you know, of interest, the proposal that we are reading about from the governors, there's one thing that they have added. They want the abolition of the prospect of an independent candidate.
Yes.
And I wondered why. That is curtailing people's freedom, really, is it not?
Yeah, because what happened what happens in a lot of cases that if you find that if you are not able to make it at the party level, then you basically choose the independent option, and maybe it would get you more mileage. I mean, we've seen cases that you cited, CT, of where people then run on an independent ticket
Yes.
and actually make it in.
Yes.
So I think definitely this is what they're trying to cut out, the option of actually getting in through an independent ticket and actually winning.
Actually, it's more a question of someone who will divide the votes. Because if you have someone who's genuinely popular
Yep.
with a certain section of the community, it means those votes that could have gone to somebody who thinks they could get that particular post
Will
through
go
a
to
party.
them.
Yes, yes. And there are many people who actually win just because votes are split.
Right.
Yeah. And there are
Which
people...
distorts democracy and the choice of the people, actually.
Which one?
The idea of splitting votes and manipulating votes like
No,
that.
that's part of democracy.
No, it's part of it, but
Yeah,
in
but-
essence, it distorts it. So the
No.
will of the people or the will of the majority is not reflected
Not
because of
necessarily.
technicalities. I'm not saying it's wrong; it's what happens. But because of the technicality, the will of the people is not.
If we're talking about...
It's not
No,
reflected.
Jerry has a point. She's talking about democracy being the will of the majority here.
No, the will of the party.
Majority
No,
here.
majority.
Majority.
Democracy is not the will of the party; it's the will of the majority. So what happens is when you can have, technicalities that can be manipulated and tweaked, such as having somebody come in and split votes, it starts to distort the notion of the majority.
But look at it this way, Jerry. If you have 5 political parties, right? Is the 4th and 5th party splitting the vote or not? Because look at it at
No, if they're genuine,
when you're going
if
to
they're
when you're going to the
genuine-
ballot, you actually don't elect a party, you're electing a person.
Well, you can do both. You can do either. You can decide
If-
you're voting
if-
along
if
party
our
lines or
if
you're
our
voting for
system
the
of voting was
personality.
proportional representation, or you're ticking for a party, then yes, you could say
No, you
yeah,
can
we're
decide to
splitting.
vote for the person or the party. But what I'm saying is when we have opportunities to fiddle with democracy in terms of throw wild cards in for the sake of, splitting votes as opposed to for the genuine interest of the people and giving them more options. This is to split votes because we understand how people will vote. So, for instance, we throw an ANC candidate because that might take a few votes from ODM and so on.
the Ford Kenya
Then you're
one.
distorting it.
And the Ford Kenya one. It's a political game. It's a bad one.
No. But why is it bad, Eric?
No, I'm just saying. No, I'm not saying bad.
You're saying bad.
Yeah, I'm saying bad.
It's a byproduct of democracy and the election
it's
process.
bad. Michael Jackson bad.
Right. Why Kenyans are going cuckoo about chicken? More Kenyans are going for chicken instead of beef, goat, or fish. A survey titled Evaluate Consumers' Knowledge, Attitudes, and Practices Around Sourcing and Consumption of Meat Products found that 92.6% of Kenyans preferred chicken on their dinner tables to other types of meat. It's interesting because we talked about healthcare and prevention of certain diseases, and looking at now people actually taking a step to make sure that their health is in optimal state. And now we're looking at meat consumers saying that they're looking at what is produced without antibiotics. They're looking at safely transported to the market. And Kenyans are looking more towards white meat and trying to stay away from red meat in terms of now trying to be more healthy. And it seems that this is something that has taken the attention of quite a number of, quite a percentage of the population. More Kenyans are going for foods produced organically, with the study indicated that consumers are willing to pay more for meat that is chemical free.
The push,
in the right direction.
the push to go organic is big.
Yeah.
There's an entire consumer perception about meat, right? That needs to be deconstructed, just to borrow Jerry's word, and also understanding of what meat is. For example, when does muscle become meat? You know that. I'll give you an example. Very many people on Christmas Day or during celebrations, you decide I'm gonna slaughter for my people a goat, right? So you identify that goat in the morning, you slaughter the goat, and at lunch, the goat is on your plate.
Right.
That is not meat. That is still muscle, what you're eating. So basically, there's a whole science behind it, in veterinary people. So they say the best way to actually consume your meat is slaughter it, let it stay between 12 and 24 hours, because that's when now the muscle converts it from muscle to meat, the whole process of rigor mortis, and after 24 hours, now that is meat. And it allows, it works on tenderness, it works on taste, it actually works on meat being meat. Before that, it's not.
Oh, there you go. Something we didn't know.
But of interest.
I don't know. I'm not going to comment on that because meat is meat. Whether you're talking about the culinary sort of upgrade by letting it stay a little bit longer, meat is meat in terms of the protein that it is.
So essentially, you're saying it should be cured first.
No. What I'm actually talking about is not about meat being meat on culinary. It's the science of meat. A goat, when it's alive, it's muscle. Right? When an animal is alive, it's muscle. When you've slaughtered
is this semantics? Are we talking terminologies
Terminology.
Here?
Like science.
So is it a matter of when you're eating it, you're still eating meat, no matter how long, since it can be freshly slaughtered or it can have been cured or hung for 21 days, it's still the same protein.
No, that's what I'm saying. So for it to actually convert itself from muscle to what you now call meat, right, is that process, the 12-hour process, going through the rigor process. See, when something dies, it stiffens. And then it starts loosening up. And that's this one I'm actually quoting what veterinary scientists say. So that's a natural process.
Okay, so you're saying we should stop eating muscle.
In developed markets,
wait 12 hours.
In developed markets, they actually have that as a rule. You slaughter today, it has to stay in the slaughterhouse for 12 to 14 hours before it goes out to the butcheries.
Got it.
Okay.
It's interesting that we're getting health conscious, though, with regards to what we eat. I wonder if that's reflected in our drinking habits
but there's something,
as well.
but there's something else
good
here. Before we get to our drinking habits and what we actually consume, there's what you feed your livestock on.
Yes.
Because when you talk about a very large population of people turning to be vegans or vegetarians, I can never really understand what these differences are. Okay, one doesn't eat vegetable, the other one doesn't.
No. Vegans don't eat any animal products. So vegetarians will have milk, cheese, and so on, but vegans won't.
They just eat vegetables alone.
Absolutely.
And vegetarians?
Vegetables, but they'll have milk, cheese, eggs. Whereas vegans won't have any animal products.
Right. Thank you very much. So, vegan, vegetarian,
all of those.
Did you get it?
Yeah, it's sinking in slowly.
Right.
If you look at what livestock is fed on in the West, you'll understand why many people prefer not to eat meat. Yes. The mad cow disease.
I remember that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes. It came about as a part of the products that cows were eating were actually part of themselves. Yes, that's what it boiled down to, really. So, in essence, You'd find it puzzling when you go to some of these Western world type places, and someone asks you, when you ask for meat, whether you want grass-fed or grain-fed.
Or corn-fed chicken.
Yes, as an African Kenyan, it confuses you completely. You ask, apart from that, what else do they actually eat?
Apart from grass.
Yes, and I also, so okay, these are the options. What do I have? What else do they eat? Or do they have some that actually eat plastic? And they say, if you want the one that eat plastic,
can bring that for
we can
you.
actually give you this. If the ones that eat pesticides, we can also give you these. Are those the options?
What worries me is how rigorous we are with testing what our animals are either eating or being injected with. We don't have enough lobby groups. I remember in the UK you'd have protesters and so on. Here, other than I've seen a few documentaries come out on, great stations like KTN and so on. But other than that, you don't have people protesting. And also we don't have information, and companies are not forced to label food. And there's no stipulation by the law to label food as well as maybe in the UK.
We don't hold our producers accountable for what they give us.
We generally don't have a lobbying culture here in terms of...
We do have a lobbying culture, but not in that
Not in that field.
form.
Not in all fields.
We
Politically, we have very serious one.
very vibrant.
But you know what?
The thing is about consumer awareness. This consumer awareness is really wanting, and that's been clearly demonstrated. And also, there's a lot that is happening. Though, it's small steps, step by step, but there's something that's happening, in terms of creating consumer awareness. When you talk about now this study and audit reveals that people are now being more conscious of what they're eating, but a lot more needs to happen, especially from the lobby front.
But red meat is generally regarded as sort of more unhealthy than white meat.
Yes, it is.
Although nobody's getting out of here alive, you might as well enjoy it. I mean,
Eat what you can.
The question you would ask is the studies that have brought that to the fore, where were they conducted?
and whose interest?
And in
were
whose
they?
interest were they
whose
serving?
interest,
Because do you know of any such study that has been conducted in this part of the world? Not that I know of. These are studies in the West, and their findings may be very true of the West, but not necessarily
Not
true.
necessarily here.
No, not necessarily. But of interest, while we're talking of food, it appears that Lake Victoria could be running out of fish.
Good Lord.
Again.
You have laws, you have bylaws, you have policies that nobody seems to follow. But one, fishing boats have increased from 14,000 to 16,000. That's a new study. But there's something called cage fishing that has also increased. And now they want to regularize it so that they ensure that it's done in what they call a sustainable manner. Yes. It's the story of closing the stable door when the horse has already bolted. Okay? The issue of fish running out, it isn't strange. Why do you think you have maritime laws? Because it is very easy to overfish. It is not difficult. This is new even.
That's what happened in Somalia, which
Yeah.
led to the pirating because they didn't have anything else to do for an income.
Yes, exactly. So they chose a new growth industry.
Absolutely. It was the Italians and the French, actually, overfishing. There were no maritime laws, and that's what happened. But with fish, I mean, can't they just throw some caviar in there and... Sorry, okay.
In Lake Victoria.
Jerry, you do know that the last time such a statement was made was many centuries ago by some lady called Marie Antoinette. When people were
Let them have cake.
Yes, exactly. So, yes.
Good morning. Well, this is the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are looking at what's been covered in the papers this morning. Also, remember, you can download the Standard e-paper. Download the Standard e-paper app on Google Play Store and Apple App Store. Why do we say Google? Google.
Say Google.
Google Play Store and Apple App Store.
So long as we
This is the
understand what
Standard
he's talking
e-paper
about,
and then you can
Google,
get all
Google,
the
it's fine.
You can get all the publication from the Standard Group online, and that's the Standard, the Nairobian, and the others online, and that's just by paying a one-off fee, and you have access to all these papers every day as soon as they're published.
Eric, the wars in South Africa are not dying down. Now, their president, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, admits that South Africa isn't safe for women. And the reason is as follows. One in every 5 women under 18 have experienced some form of violence. Now, on a daily basis, as in Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Sunday, Monday, like that, there are cases of rape reported, 100 cases reported daily of rape. And he says that women are saying, a state of emergency needs to be declared for women.
It's interesting because this is not the first time actually that this has been declared in South Africa. And actually, if you walk in the streets of Johannesburg and even in Cape Town, you will find what they call danger districts, and they actually tell women, it's actually there on the streets with huge signs telling women not to walk in this particular area after 4 p.m. Not at night.
4 p.m.
4 p.m. because those have been known to be what they call danger districts, because they know that this is where rapists would actually come out and attack women. So it's been declared before as a place that is not safe for women, but I guess now again, if I don't know if this is linked to the recent spate of violence. However, it's something that has been there for years, and like I said, you'll actually find these districts, mushroomed, scattered across the city, specifically of Johannesburg, and I guess now it has become worse. But it's not the first time a state of emergency has been declared as per that.
So when Comrade Ramaphosa says, yes, I agree that this is actually a bad situation, what is he saying that the government is going to do about it?
Platitudes, really. What the papers report, there's nothing concrete, because this isn't a new problem. It's just been highlighted against the backdrop of the xenophobic attacks that we had. But so that we shouldn't sort of over-rejoice, we have our own situation, a place called Njiru, Kiambu County, where it is said that it's a gangster's paradise.
Right.
And lo and behold, should you be found walking in that neighborhood after 8, you will be accosted.
Is that whether you're a man or a woman? Because this is different. This is male aggression.
In Njiru, they're democratic. They do not. They
don't discriminate.
They don't discriminate in crime.
Against you.
No, but the issue at hand in South Africa is a very interesting phenomenon. It's the idea of male aggression against women, and it's usually a channel to vent. There's an underlining problem, which is much bigger. And hopelessness, yeah. It comes down to the government. Similar reasoning or rationale as with the xenophobia that we evinced, or that we've seen over the last few weeks and years even. Interesting one. While we're at that, the Daily Nation main headline is why Battle for Kibra threatens the handshake. We've discussed that slightly, but it goes on to say love lies when marriage turns to murder, and it talks about the different domestic homicides there's been over the last few months, and that's what I'll be discussing later on in the show, so I thought I'd point that out. Domestic homicide, the person who's most likely to kill you if you're going to be murdered is going to be your partner or your spouse. You're aware of that. So
really?
Absolutely.
So what you're saying is that
I'm not saying they are likely to kill you.
Life expectancy of those who are married
no
is lower than those
who are not.
No. Don't skew the statistics.
Don't begin on a false premise.
No. No, if you're most likely to be murdered by your spouse, if you're going to be murdered, or if you're murdered, the most likely suspect is your spouse.
Okay, that sounds more plausible than the other. So
no, you're most likely to be murdered by your spouse than to be murdered by anybody else, if you're going to be murdered.
And what they use as a premise for that discussion is because of proximity, is it?
Well, there's, I suppose, accessibility, proximity, along with other things.
Knowledge
you're more
of
likely
patterns, etc.
Passion in terms of feelings.
Yes. Feelings convoluted, turned around.
Do we have crimes of passion in Kenya whereby it's a defense?
It's a defense.
Where passion, like in France, for instance, for a very long time, you had crimes of passion. So yes, you're still convicted of murder, but passion would be considered a mitigating circumstance. So
essentially, they'd be saying you're not in the right state of mind.
Oh, well, to a certain extent, yeah, they consider jealousy or anger and that aggression not being in the right state of mind. But interesting when we talk about domestic homicide, because in the UK, it's a defense. If you're a battered wife, for instance, or if your husband has been aggressive over the years, it's actually a defense to murder, believe it or not. And most recently, emotional abuse is now a defense to murder, mainly with women. There was a lady who was let out. When I say let out, her conviction was overturned. She had been in jail for 10 years for murdering her husband, and her sons pushed for the fact that her husband had been emotionally abusive over the years. And as a result, she wasn't in the right frame of mind, or emotional abuse is now considered a defense to murder in domestic homicide cases.
Essentially what they're saying is that the lady acted in self-defense.
No. There was no attack. She went to him. There was no physical attack.
Well, the attack had been there. This is the point.
emotional.
The attack had been consistent over the years.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what amounted to the killing the husband was her defense. She wanted these attacks.
Although
to
it's self-defense, if you have the opportunity to get away and escape, then you can't say it was self-defense, because she could have run away. Then again, she could have been mentally paralyzed and
Probably,
constricted
yeah.
by the guy. So, but interesting. We'll be looking at the idea of homicide within marriages later on today.
Okay. Well, skipping over to the arts, I think there's good things happening. Subira, which is a Kenyan-produced film, gets an Oscar nod. The film by Ravneet Chadha beat others to get the coveted spot after the Oscar Selection Committee announced the results. The feature film, Subira, is Kenya's 2019 choice for the Oscars. The Kenya Film Commission has announced the film by Ravneet Chadha beat Lusala to the zenith of film awards after the Oscar Selections Committee announced the results on Monday. After consideration of all the points and the strengths and weaknesses of the two film entries, the Oscar Selection Committee Kenya hereby confirms that it has selected Subira as the Kenya submission to the 92nd Academy Awards in the category of Best International Feature Film, read the statement from the committee. So
do we know what criteria it is they use in choosing these things?
I mean, there's a whole slew of what they look at. It's not mentioned here, but it takes some. They talk about the strengths and weaknesses, production, all of these things come into consideration. However, in terms of the specific elements, I'm not quite sure what they use.
Okay,
select.
I merely ask because I was thinking more in terms of the actors who actually get these accolades. Yes, and how it is.
How they're selected.
Yes. I mean, it would be interesting
by
to
the
know.
Academy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yes.
The categories for the Oscars, or like, awards like this go across the board. You go from actors to production to lighting to sound to,
But I thought,
makeup across the board.
Yeah, they have awards for all these things.
Yes. But this specific one was for the best international feature film. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for us.
I think so.
It is.
Well, it puts, the moment you mention Kenya, the entire country is put in a positive limelight.
Yeah,
So it's a good thing.
it is.
City, you had seen a story somewhere about some interesting wars.
Actually, it's truly amazing the
Backstabbing.
things that our papers report. Because we were talking about a situation where something very interesting. An MCA began, this is an MCA in Nyamira, he threatened to actually shoot a pastor's wife in the buttocks.
Okay.
The threat. But as a result of his threats, he was suspended. Okay? And lo and behold, when I turned to the following page, I found something a bit more interesting. There's a plumber who was in a tight pipe for stabbing his wife's buttocks. What
is
is
in a tight pipe?
What is going on?
No, this is backstabbing taken to a completely different level. What is it?
What's going on?
And this man and threatening to shoot the pastors. Why the pastors? If he's so taken up with shooting buttocks, why doesn't he shoot his own wife's buttocks? Yes.
There's probably a deeper story. Maybe you can help us.
It's sometimes people
There's a
say
backstory.
things. Yeah,
There's a backstory.
Oh, there's a story to back this up. There are things people say and do in a heated moment. And upon reflection, they'll probably realize they shouldn't have. But when it's out there, it will get you into trouble.
Yeah.
Yes. Like you stand up on a podium. Remember the questions of hate speech, and you say some really crazy things,
Yeah.
which you probably don't really mean. But it'll get you into trouble because you've uttered them and they've been heard. Yes. And they are considered for, you may say, I didn't mean this, but it's been heard. Yes.
And then the Nairobian, the sensationalist paper, murder suspect wanted for child support. So this is in reference to the riveting story that's been unfolding over the weeks or last couple of weeks. This is ex-wife Martha Wangari is a rich MP and should take care of her kids, says Peter Njoroge. Of course, Peter Njoroge was recently arrested in connection with the tycoon Tob Cohen's death. So he's now being sued for child support by his wife, and he's been implicated in the murder of Tob Cohen. So just an extra twist there to the story.
His mother Wangari is the Gilgil MP.
She is. And he reckons, this Peter Njoroge fella, that she's rich enough and should take care of her own kids. And his kids, I guess. Besides, he's got a bigger fish to fry at the moment, being accused of murder. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that.
He has been accused.
Yeah, but is that bigger than raising his children or supporting his children?
Let's say they're both big, but the problem is now this man's life is, and then the occurrences therein are going to be out in the open.
Mm-hmm.
And when such things come up, we are not going to hear very positive things.
No.
It'll be one Tory story from another to another to another.
Indeed.
Yes.
Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app on Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, where for a one standard fee, you can actually access all the publications by the Standard Media Group. We have been taking a look at what's been covered in the headlines. It's now 6:30. When I come out of this short break and taking a look at the traffic, we'll begin to look at politicians and how they behave in public and in private. And exactly what is it that that drives them? Or are they driven at all? This is the Situation Room. Keep it right here.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How, you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
It is Friday. Let's see what's happening on the roads this morning. At about 6:25, it was a happy hour on Kiambu Road. It was early, but yeah, there was a little bit of traffic, but things were moving along smoothly, feeding onto the Thika Superhighway and getting towards the Pangani overpass. We don't have much of an issue there so far. All right, Mombasa Road as normal, not so much traffic, but it's likely to add up as we go ahead. Nothing major on the roads. If you are out early, you are enjoying the smooth and open roads. It's likely to clog up as we get towards 7 o'clock. For right now, not so much. If you see anything that we should know or hear about, give us a call, 0719 012 600. Let's know what the traffic looks like this morning.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
27 minutes to 7 o'clock. Good morning. You're in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. We are live streaming on Facebook, on Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Our frequencies around the country: Eldoret, we are on 96.7, Kisumu, 102.5, Nakuru, 96.0, Mombasa, 87.9, Nyeri, 90.9, Malindi, 97.6, and of course, Nairobi, 94.4. Now, let's talk about our politicians.
Let's talk about our politicians. So much to say and so little time in which to say it. The question that often arises is, when people behave the way they do, is it something that is intrinsically part of them? Is it something that they've learned as they've grown along? Is it something that the environment around them has pummeled them into being? What is it? Do people do the things they do because that is who they are? Or is it that is what circumstances demand? I'm sure anyone listening in will have come across a situation where someone known to them ascends to the office of a Mheshimiwa. And suddenly the person you knew ceases to exist. And in his place, you find someone who isn't interested in you anymore. Someone who, at very best, is perhaps arrogant, but definitely far removed from the interests of the people who elected him into that office. Now, this is what we want to look at. Do we have a situation where these people behave badly? My assertion is that MPs simply become themselves.
Do they become themselves? So they just behave the way they behave because that's who they are, intrinsically.
Go round and round and round and round in circles, and you will find the exceptions where there are people who were elected to that office and they remain the nice, whoever they were. But then there are those who, the word is metamorphosized completely, and they become someone. It's a Jekyll and Hyde situation. They become someone completely different. So I'm saying that's who they were all along. It's just that the opportunity to show this side hadn't come into being. And now that they're in that office, the opportunity provides itself and we see them for what they actually are.
And what are they? Have we defined these characteristics or virtues or lack thereof?
Yes, one of the things that the characteristics say of the politicians in Kenya is that they will say anything to further their interest. And it's rarely the interest of those who elected them.
Isn't that the very nature of politics, though?
It isn't. It is what we have made it to be. Politics, by its very nature, is representative, and it's supposed to be genuinely to bring the issues that the so-called voter has to the fore, to ensure that there is some good that comes out of that entire exercise. That really primarily is what it's all about.
So you take issue with the fact that these people say anything on a podium?
I take issue with it begins even with the campaigns. They will say anything to get elected. And the proof of this particular pudding is that once they're elected, many constituents complain of never seeing the MP until maybe the last year before the election. Others speak of the member they represent, their representatives as being rude, uncaring, unfeeling. And others would argue and say, but when you're the sort of person whom people come to on a daily basis, after a while you get tired of these requests. But the people who engineer and bring about a situation of dependency are the MPs themselves. They are the ones who bring about this situation where you allow people and you encourage people to constantly come to you and ask for things and constantly depend on you. So you create this situation, so why do you complain? You created it. At least you helped create it.
So if you look at a situation whereby, for example, if the general feeling is that this MP is a joke, the things that they tell us all the time, we take them from, they're not taking us seriously. It's coming about from the things that they say on a regular basis. And so now that becomes the narrative that we use to describe this individual when we think of them. Certain things that may have been expressed in public, certain things that they continue to say, we then say, this is what this person is. We thought that we had put somebody else into power. We had thought we put them into position of leadership by our vote for them to be able to, articulate our needs and our desires. However, this person has turned out to be a joke, for example, because of the things that they say on a normal basis. Are we saying that this is what that person always was?
That's precisely what I'm saying. Because, you see, there are people who are elected to this very same office who don't really change. I mean, they're just the people you knew. And when you meet them, same. A very large number of these people change. Now, of course, there are those who argue that the environment in which they find themselves in is something that they had never, ever experienced. And so they change. Yes, but couldn't you change for the better? They tend to change for the worse. That is why there's a complaint. If they became better people as a result of it, then the issue of complaint would be moot. It simply wouldn't arise. But they don't. They don't.
I'm still to get what you're putting forward here, that MPs are supposedly good people on the face of it.
MPs are there's not MPs. People who aspire to those offices and who change for the worse are intrinsically not good people. They only give the impression they are. And when they get to those offices, we see them in their true colors.
When do they give the impression that they are?
Their behavior.
When?
before someone ascends
when
to
they're
office,
campaigning, they make promises. It doesn't mean they're good people. Does that translate to them being good people?
Before someone even begins campaigning, you will not know much about them. But for them to be even considered a candidate material, there's something that people will find good or likable or desirable about them. That's why they even bother to even vote.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, when you coalesce all these things and it translates into a vote and the person becomes a member of parliament, this good that they saw, which made them elect this person, vanishes. And instead, something else appears.
Well, electioneering is very different from the actual task of leading and legislating. So you can understand there'd be different attributes of them coming out at different times. So during an electioneering period, you're going to put on the charm offensive. And then when it comes to doing the work, you're somebody different. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying this MP turns bad? Or you're saying they're inherently bad?
Jerry, something has happened to you this morning.
What's that?
You're slow.
No, I'm trying to see your point, because you're saying during elections and campaigns, they're very likable. They're going to turn on the likability factor.
I am saying this. Let me repeat it again. Right now, you are a host on this particular radio station. You've never been a host on this station because this program has never existed before. And as a result of this, you will find your pictures all over the landscape in this country. People who didn't even know you existed will know you exist. Now, if you are the sort of person who, when people call, you respond to calls, suddenly, because of the Kenyan definition, you become what you call a celeb. Celeb in this country is visibility. If you are visible, whether you are heard often enough or you're seen of, you become a celeb. It's celeb, okay? Now, you then begin to play the role of the celeb. The MP is individual so-and-so who is elected. They then become...
celebs.
Yes, they become Mweshimiwa. Yes,
and you think this gives them a big
yes,
head?
they actually want you even to be called Mweshimiwa. You don't just call somebody Onyango Tieno. No. I'm Mweshimiwa. Okay? You have to acknowledge that he is not the person you knew. He is now Mweshimiwa so-and-so. That change, unfortunately, is usually not for the good. It tends to be for the bad. And I'm saying we at last see the person for who they really are.
And even their leadership tendencies also. If you look at very many people who come from the civil society, for instance, they're advocating good governance, they're pushing for a better leadership, better qualities of a leader, and then they come up and they say, please vote for me because I represent what I've been talking about, better governance, better leadership. And then they go into parliament and they just join the flock. When MPs, the first agenda for leaders is to increase their salary, these former NGO people are among them. And when they were in the NGO, they were the ones who were completely loudest, actually, in opposing these kind of moves. When it comes to the kind of legislation that's being passed, the kind of sitting allowances and such, they are among the ones who are quiet when all these things are happening. So when they were saying that, vote me in, and I'll go in there and I'll be the voice of reason, among in that den of thieves, I'll be the voice of reason. They go in there and they are swallowed up.
Consider, okay? Look at the things they do for themselves. You have a country whose population is predominantly poor, okay? And you have people who, without batting an eyelid, yes, they may be broke, yes, they may be, but they never lose an opportunity to give themselves more money. Never lose an opportunity. Now, you are going to tell me that people who focus on this and will even use the very laws that they're supposed to protect to go around those laws to give themselves more perks, you're telling me that these are people who exhibit good characteristics. Leadership is about good characteristics, really, unless we are saying we've convoluted our values to the point where we actually aspire to have leaders who exhibit negative characteristics. That's what you're saying.
I think we all have a selfish gene, and this is just it's human to be self-serving naturally. I think at the bottom of it, if you really get to the bottom of it, and this is what they exhibit, that when I can earn more, I'm going to push for that. It's not to say they don't have good traits that will help their constituents.
Well hidden, those traits.
They keep them at bay once they're in. No, I'm not saying this evil you speak about of MPs that is inherent.
It isn't evil. It's bad.
Or these unlikable traits. Although, of course, there was Mohaj Chopevu, who was very, very well respected in terms of unearthing the ills of leadership and so
corruption,
on. And corruption. And then, of course, he's gone and joined the bandwagon now once he's inside.
You know, if you look at the political class, our MPs, 290 of them, see, I see your point of view. It's the biggest game in town. The trips they go for, the places they go to, the people they meet, it gives them an elevated idea of themselves. And the unfortunate thing, this change is what we call a God complex. Someone gets to the point where they start feeling that they are not an ordinary human being.
They're the ones.
They're like the axis.
It's an inflated sense of self, but people around them give them that.
They allow people around them to.
Yes.
They encourage it.
They encourage it.
They encourage it. Why must one MP have hang around with 7 people every day? What do you need 7 people hanging around you every day? And you say this because you will find MPs who have a driver and a bodyguard, full stop. Some have a driver, full stop. So it isn't as though it's all of them. But what we see, what is in our face on a daily basis, are these demigods. You know, I'd like to quote a gentleman. He was a theological writer called Tozer. And he said something very interesting. He said that no religion is greater than the idea of God. Why do I bring this into play? When someone takes a position of God, they expect to be worshipped. That's why they insist that they must be called Mweshimiwa. Like when people refer to the gods they believe in, they have an elevated name that they use to refer to these gods. Now, gods don't expect to be questioned. Gods don't expect. They expect people to do what they are told, and they expect people to take what they are given.
They'll give the direction.
Precisely. Now, that's not what democracy is all about, and that's not what leadership within a democracy is all about. So this whole thing is convoluted, and I'm saying we are seeing these people for what they genuinely are.
But this, go ahead.
That's what I was going to say. I think that they're not showing us anything different from what they are. And now that begs the question again, what are we putting into positions, or who rather, are we putting into positions of leadership? Because when they open their mouths to speak, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. You can guess where I'm quoting from. If we're looking at 83.
No, I'm not. I am marveling. I am marveling at your grasp of the of the quotes from the Bible. Please, Reverend, continue.
Now we look at a situation whereby the things that they say, you can't say things over and over and over again and that not be what it is that you actually believe, or in essence, who you are. And so they tell us on a constant basis who they are. They tell us by the words they speak, the things that they express over and over again on the podiums and the platforms that they have available to them as leaders. They are telling us who they are. What I am baffled at is that why don't we believe them? They're basically telling us who they are and what it is that they imbibe. Why don't we believe them and think that they're going to be able to do something apart from or other than what they are basically telling us who they are and what they're able to do or not do?
You know, our leaders come from our community, so
we should believe them.
They are our own.
Yes, we should believe them. And so then again,
They
take
are
the
a reflection of who we are.
Exactly.
Yes.
And if we are comfortable with that, then we ought not to complain. If we are not, however, we believe them and take them really at face value for who they say they are. And if we are not comfortable with having such people in leadership or such creeds or beliefs having then ruling us as the gods that they say they purport to want to be, then we have a responsibility as the people to put others in positions of leadership.
Do we also see
we need to believe them for who they are.
Do you also see instances where leaders actually try to dumb themselves up? You know, just to appear likable and all. So where you find somebody who is, well, they in their previous life, before they went into parliament or before they went into politics, they actually had some serious professional career, and they behaved in a certain way. And then they go into politics and they start, being, they want to be funny, they want to use the strongest words, they want to speak as freely as they can get.
They take on a particular character
for a
purpose.
Yeah, to prop themselves up as, I am one of you guys. Maybe ni mtu wa kawaida, If you look at, for example, the governor Lonyangapuo, Lonyangapuo was
professor of mathematics.
Professor of applied mathematics, right? I don't
applied
know
mathematics. Okay.
Let's just stop at mathematics.
You know what I was going to ask.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah. And then Lonyangapuo was also a PS, actually, in the Kibaki government. And Lonyangapuo is now a governor. And if you look at that man and then you hear him the way he speaks in public, well, he's just making jokes, and he loves it. He seems to enjoy it. He's like, I've actually found my niche. I want to go into comedy. So yes, he's doing. He could be working, and he may be doing
Eric,
a lot of
you
work.
really think
but
that
the
man
way
believes he's going into comedy?
he's gone into comedy.
If all else fails.
he trends, man.
Well, they do have to package themselves for public consumption in terms of for the masses. So he's not going to come out and start talking complex mathematical theories.
Yeah.
He's going to appeal to the public. He's got to speak their language, and he's got to appeal to them. So no doubt he might simplify or dumb himself down a little bit and connect with them. And of course, humor is always it lightens the heart in every culture. It creates likability factor. But an interesting thing with the godlike complex you're talking about, it comes from our understanding of what leadership is and the handout culture. And this is why they get the respect that they do, because there's a level of dependency on them, or there's an expectancy that they'll give you money, or if you're nice to them, if you bow down, if you suck up.
Bend the knee.
And this gives them that elated, not sense of self, but we do place them on a pedestal because they could possibly help us as MPs. That's how the masses see these people. So it comes from our understanding as the electorate of what leadership is. We've failed to grasp the fact that leadership is supposed to be servanthood, in that I am paying you my taxes for you to go and represent me. Instead, it's become that you can give me money and help me out. And as a result, it's quite skewed, and you get this notion that an MP feels hard for himself, for lack of a better phrase, but walks around with a godlike complex. And understandably, if everybody's sort of sucking up to you and bowing down to you, you do grow an ego. Your ego does grow. You're only human. I'm not saying it's the best way to be, but you can see where that would stem from. And this stems from the electorate. And this is why I keep saying, not everybody deserves a vote, because some people are simply more malleable. Some people are simply...
I was wondering where you're going with this. Okay.
If we look at the situation and ask ourselves, the other day we asked questions in terms of when did the rain actually start beating us? When did the electorate actually decide? Or when, if we see a coming together, when people decided, okay, what I'm going to do is I will accord you this hero worship. I will accord you the elements of, your godlike position. I will kiss the ring, as it were, in order to get what I need to get from you. Because of the fact that I've realized that when you do get into this position of leadership, nothing is actually going to trickle down to me as it ought to. It won't trickle down to me when you do your job. I will not be able to get what I need to get in terms of what you should actually provide for the citizenry, in terms of services, good roads, etc., etc. So at the point when you're electioneering, I will get what I can from you. It doesn't necessarily mean that I respect you as an individual. It doesn't necessarily mean that I see you as someone who's going to take us from point A to point B in terms of moving forward. But because of the situation that I have seen that we've been in before, where really when you get into a position of leadership, you actually don't do what it is that you are going to do. So at the point you're electioneering, I'm going to do what I can. I will respect you. I will worship you. I will honor you in order to get what I can at that point, because the promise of me getting something better is not going to be fulfilled. And that's why we see the situation that we do.
So you're saying we create the monsters?
Absolutely, we do.
Okay.
We do. We create them.
But take this view. Okay, let's pause and leave the MPs out of this for a little while. And let's think about what Njeri was saying, because I've been thinking about it. Think of people who are just ordinary citizens, as we like calling them, and then they were elevated not to a political position, but some CEO top-like position.
Or a basic manager.
Yes. Do we see them changing as well?
Oh yeah, I think we see that the Oga. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
The Oga mentality.
Yes.
The Oga mentality kicks in because suddenly you are in a position, and the Oga mentality. Okay, Oga means in Nigeria it means boss. So that mentality kicks in, whereby you suddenly have a position, and that position must come with 1, 2, 3, and then you have a feeling or affinity to now want to lord things over people, as opposed to the realization that you actually are in a position of servitude.
But do people appear to accept this augurship?
Yes.
The people accept it because of the position.
Yes.
People accept
Or
it, yes.
because of expectation?
Yeah, because of expectation of what I would essentially benefit from you. And we also don't realize, and if we realize, we don't push it to say that you actually are there for me. You're there for me.
So what we're discussing
as opposed to you being there for yourself.
It does,
yes, we are supporting it, yes.
Actually, there's an entire industry that actually promotes this. It's called the gutter press. Sorry. What's the polite term for it again?
Tabloids.
Tabloids.
Yes. Part of our being here, yes. They live on simply promoting this, don't they? Yes. And so they bring it But some of those stories are really interesting.
Oh, yeah, you want to lap it up, don't you? Yes.
They fish out the scandalous side of things, but I think the community, the society is the one that actually places emphasis on this, on that Oga mentality. Start from prefect, class prefect. Class prefect is revered in class, and not just because of their position. Yes, they're in a position of leadership in that classroom, but these are kids in primary school. But that guy behaves like he's the Lord. He basically
and where does he take his cue from?
From the classroom.
Yes, exactly. The way people treat, and it's
the way people treat him.
It's our understanding of what leadership is.
Of leadership.
So the moment, and usually the sign of the car you drive, where you live. My mind has gone back to the days when everybody wore shorts.
I was just going to talk about colonialism.
The Kaptula.
Please.
I think colonialism defined quite a lot. There's still remnants of that we see in our society, in our politics, and in our governance, and most importantly in our psychology. So that when you're given a leadership position, it becomes more commanding and demagogue-like, as opposed to the idea of leading through servanthood and so on. And I think those are remnants of colonialism. That is what we saw, and that's come up from a caller. There's a caller who called in when we were talking about Mugabe, and what Mugabe's leadership style was like, and what his demeanor was like, and how he could be quite sort of assertive, for lack of a to put it mildly, so to speak. And
so as not to speak ill of the dead. Yes.
Yes. And he said, actually, you have to remember that Mugabe grew up in a very strict, controlled environment. It was colonial. You can imagine it was, top-down leadership. It was constant commands and so on that he had to follow. And I think we still have that in terms of what management is, what leadership is. Because when you're not in management, when you're not in leadership, there's a sense of suppression, oppression, and so on. So when you do get up there, there's I don't know. There's a victory now that you must celebrate, and
then now you must lord your position over other people.
Yeah, and it reminds me of with Kenyan system schools. They talk about this thing called monalization, and it's done to you in Form 1, and then when you get to Form 2, you can't wait to do it to the Form 1s. It's
hazing.
It's that sort of thing.
Kind of thing.
But then there's also the other sense of, you get to that position and you feel you're invincible. Maybe, like you're saying, it's the natural characteristic of this person. Was it Timothy who called in who calls them sociopaths? You've got a tendency.
Timothy actually called them psychopaths and had to be corrected.
Yes.
The sociopaths and psychopaths are not the same. No. If you consider what Njeri has just said about our thinking being shaped by our colonial past, she actually isn't wrong.
I'm never wrong, Siti. Haven't you figured that?
I'm getting to that point slowly. I'm getting there. The bullying you speak of, I went to a school where this thing that has now been vilified as bullying, there was a pecking order to it, and there was a military structure from which it. When you were in Form 1, they called you a rebel. You essentially were the lowest possible
cannon fodder.
Yes, and you served. In that period in time, you didn't hear of anybody being beaten to the point where the people were bullied. Yes, you're pushed around, but the boundaries were actually clear. People who went overboard were few.
There were rules to the game.
Yes, and it didn't even get to the teachers. Among their own peers, they'd be brought and told, no, this isn't a damn thing. When you go to Form 2, your status changed immediately.
Right.
When you go to Form 3, it changed even more. When you go to Form 4, it changed completely.
So there was a hierarchy.
There was a hierarchy.
Structure.
It actually taught you to respect. That's what it did.
Stratification.
Yes. So the higher you go, the more privileges you have. By the time you go to Form 5 and 6, I actually go to the tail end of it. But prefects were even allowed to smoke in school.
Right.
Allowed
the prefects. It was a privilege.
Yes, I came to you could smoke in school.
This is in high school.
Don't even hide.
5, 5, 6.
Yes, you don't even need to hide. You just smoked in your cubicle.
Good example.
Yes. So I'm simply saying that sometimes something is vilified without understanding what it was intended for.
Exactly.
Yes.
Or what its values were.
Yes.
But do you think with that's formed the core of our understanding of what leadership is, in that there's privileges at the top, and down below you can be suppressed, oppressed, monolized.
Now you see the monolization. This is the point. Every junior person was attached to a prefect. Now, that was your protector, so to speak. So it wasn't as though you're just left to the vagaries of life. No.
You had
someone who actually looked after your interest.
Yeah.
You had someone
And somebody
who
you
was
could
over
go
you.
to and complain to and say, look, so-and-so is giving me a hard time because of A, B, C, D. And they would look
But
into it.
were
But
these
density,
structures
just to cut you
necessary?
short, density to look at this. It's not that the prefects were actually feeling like they were lords as well, but that's what we're discussing this morning. The role playing in Kenyan politics and Kenyan leaders. This is the Situation Room, the Kenya's biggest conversation. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. We'd love to open up the phone lines for you to call in 0719 012 600. 0719 012 600. We want to know what exactly you think about this. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock.
Spice up your life.
All right, looking at the situation roundabout to 7 o'clock this morning. On Mombasa Road from GM towards Bellevue to Nyayo Stadium, there is heavy traffic. However, it is moving along slowly. We can only expect this on the highway. The Ngong Road from Railway Bridge, that is under construction, there's heavy traffic there. But I guess once you get past that, everything else moves along smoothly. Thika Road, it's moving slowly from Garden City as we get, towards and past the Allsops Junction. We have some traffic heading on to the Outer Ring Road, but that is normal. Kiambu Road, Mwendoni Teketeke till Hapo Whiskey River, snaking all the way down till you reach the superhighway. But after the Pangani Underpass and along Muranga till the CBD, everything is all right. Moving slowly, however, the sun is up, so we have something to be thankful for. All right, apart from that, we don't have anything out of the ordinary. We have some issues along Waiaki Way, but remember, part of the road towards the Sarit Center has now been opened, and so we hope that will ease some of the traffic along there. Anything that you see that we ought to know about, give us a call, 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The only way to start
Kenya's
your
biggest
day.
conversation, 94.4 in Nairobi, 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. We are live streaming on Facebook. That is Spice FM KE on Facebook, Spice FM KE on YouTube. Our telephone line, 0719 012 600. What we're discussing this morning is the tendencies and traits of politicians, and not just Kenyan politicians who feel they're invincible, who feel they have a sense of self-importance, who feel they are elevated in society. It's not just for Kenyans. Just listen to this man, courtesy of CNN.
Whether it's bombast
I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
or bluster,
I would bomb the out of them.
one thing is certain, Donald Trump does not mince words on the campaign trail.
He said he's that's terrible. Terrible.
Trump repeating a vulgar word shouted by a woman in reference to Ted Cruz earlier this month,
Would be worse.
or using a crude Yiddish word to describe Hillary Clinton's loss to Barack Obama in 2008.
And she got schlonged. She lost.
He leveled some tough talk at a protester Monday night in Las Vegas.
Like to punch him in the face, I'll tell you.
Trump, fully aware of the force behind his words.
It's amazing. You know, whenever I want to knock out a protester, I just talk about the wall. The place goes crazy. Nobody ever hears the protest.
Campaign since the day he announced his candidacy, using charged rhetoric talking about undocumented Mexican immigrants entering the U.S.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some,
Yep. But this man takes it. He takes the cake. But he represents what we see in politicians.
But I have to ask this question.
And at this point,
here.
well, you can say at this point he was politicking. Yes.
Eric, I have to ask this question. You know, in politics, there is what you call role playing. And this is what Njeri was alluding to earlier on. They play a certain part because they want to pander to the crowd. They want to excite the crowd. Now, but the question, at what point do they stop playing the part? Because, or do they get caught up in this process of playing the part until they become the part themselves? What is it that happens?
They get into character until they leave the character.
Yes.
It would be interesting to see what somebody like Trump was before he actually began elections. And if you look at things that he did before, in terms of the productions he did on television, with the shows that he had, or even, with the whole Miss America pageant kind of thing, and the what was the famous show that he did?
The Apprentice.
The Apprentice, exactly.
I was about to call it The Lion's Den. Then I realized that is our Kenyan version. Yes, yeah. The Lion's Den.
So, I mean, when you look at the way in which he behaved, you would see the thread ran through, even in the way in which he carried himself and the things that he said before. Now, having been given a platform like this, things kind of blew, could we say, out of proportion. But if you look at it and look at how he behaved previously, you would see situations like this where he said things that people could call obnoxious, but then now it actually went on a much higher level. When he was now given this national platform.
But let's take people who actually act for a living. These are people who are supposed to act for a season to get into a position.
Right.
Now, there are people whose job it is to act. Now, if you look at their lifestyles and what they do, abated, of course, and assisted greatly by ourselves, the media.
Yep.
Okay. Now, which is which?
Are you acting or are you actually?
Or are you being
you, right? Yes,
yeah.
Because...
No, with politicians, I mean, you've got to give them a lot more credit than we are. When you say they're acting, they're playing to their arena.
And they know it.
What they are, somebody like Trump is what you call a demagogue. So what he does is appeal to people's prejudices and fears and emotions and desires, as opposed to, rational thinking. And that's what he's doing there with immigrants and that clip we heard there with the Mexicans. But he knows full well what he's doing. He's fully aware. And he's basically manipulating his electorate and the audience.
Tell me, as he goes through this process, he exhibits and exudes a certain image. Is it so?
Yeah.
How will he escape it?
Exactly. How will he come then later and say that's?
I don't think he can.
How will he say that's actually not who I am?
How will he now be somebody else?
Or I actually don't believe this.
Why
or
does
this
he
is
care
not who
to
I
be
am.
somebody else? Luckily, in places like America, you have structures in place to put checks and balances on such power. So, there's structures in terms of the civil rights are entrenched and so on. So you're not going to get him, killing Mexicans for the sake of it because he's declared it and, it's the majority party. And
he won't kill them, but he's opened up space for
somebody else
extremists.
To do it, right?
And extremism is on an all-time high in America.
Right-wing sentiments are rising.
So one could
doubt.
He's
killing their livelihoods. Yes. Absolutely.
He's opened the door.
He has wide.
Yes, he has. Yeah, and
so he doesn't have to go out himself, but is given licensure.
But he could also be reflective of, a lot of people say actually he's reflective of sentiments that were being suppressed with this idea of political correctness and so on. So the root cause of, say, racism hadn't been resolved. What the Democrats or what the politically correct conservatives or people who are conservative, not conservatives, what they do is they put a coat on it. So it's still bubbling under. So what they say is with Trump, he's actually representative of what people actually feel.
So you're saying that
we don't want these people around. Although I think it's the other way around, that he makes them think the immigrants are responsible for lack of jobs, lack of access to social services, lack of resources, and so on.
Jerry, you lived in the UK for a long time.
Okay? I did.
Remember, there was an entire migration of Asians who were then citizens of Uganda and East Africa, who moved to the UK in large numbers.
Yep.
And went there skin dirt poor. Okay? But within a decade or so, many had changed their fortunes.
They had, and it's an interesting demographic to look at. They've got different dynamics because a lot of Kenyans also migrated there as economic immigrants, but didn't enjoy the same success and the same fortunes.
Yes. Yeah. Now, so a lot of resentment has also come to the fore in the UK. A lot of it also fanned by the same politicians. Okay? Now tell me, would the feeling exist if, let's say, the gentle people of Asian origin who actually went to that country were not that successful? Because when you're successful, you stand out. If they didn't stand out, would this hatred that has been directed at them, would it have been this strong?
Not necessarily. But it may also have been because people would look at it from the point of how much are they taking from us?
That's the narrative.
Are we supporting them?
But they never felt that about the Asian community initially. This rhetoric of the immigrants taking our jobs and so on, it's quite recent. It's in the last 10 years.
With the Eastern Europeans coming in.
Absolutely, with the EU borders opening up and so on. That's when it's come in. Prior to that, there was racism, but that was sort of black and white racism, or, calling Indians Pakis.
Yeah.
But they were a very, very distinct minority.
Yeah.
The Latinos in America are not. They are growing. The numbers keep growing.
Yeah.
And they're credited with being very hardworking. No job is too small for them.
Right.
They are willing to change. Yet you have a group of people who are entitled, who feel there's certain things they shouldn't do. Remember, they were
and would rather get welfare.
Yes, many of these people were invited into the country to perform menial duties that the citizenry did not want to. They didn't want to be bothered with. Case in point, in Germany and the Turks.
Tomato picking.
These people were called in. They didn't sort of like just come to the country. They were brought in, and then over time it becomes an issue.
It's not really an issue. What it is, it's somebody you can throw the monkey on. When I say somebody, the immigrant, in terms of when you fail to provide the services and deliver the promises that you should have to your electorate, you can say, well, it is because X, Y, Z. And you've seen that with xenophobia in South Africa. It's a running trend in the 21st century to blame immigrants. Before, immigrants were actually immigrants were very welcomed initially. Let's take the UK for example. I understand the immigration and asylum laws. So when the Immigration Act was being charted, it was done during the Cold War. And what was happening is you were having a lot of people from the Eastern Bloc in Germany, a lot of communists migrating into the UK. So the UK, or the capitalists' agenda was being driven by having immigrants leave communists. It was being heroed and hailed. So you can see it was an exciting thing. You were being welcomed in from Eastern Germany, and a lot of Jews as well were coming into the UK. And then And there was nothing wrong with being an immigrant. You were celebrated. You were brought in, and you've embraced capitalism over communism. So it was very symbolic. And then that changed over time, and immigration laws became stricter and stricter as people of color started coming into the UK. And you found the Immigration and Asylum Act becoming more, stringent and a lot more tightened, and changing laws, and loopholes and technicalities were closed off as people of color came in. And then, of course, there was the opening up of the EU boundaries. And, you had the Polish coming in, and they're extremely hardworking. You had, of course, with them, their background was that they hadn't been able to achieve this sort of
So the color element went out of the window.
Yeah. But then what started happening with politicians is they started blaming immigrants for their shortcomings. So if you don't deliver on X amount of jobs you were supposed to provide, you say, no, it's because the immigrants are doing this illegally. If you don't provide housing that you promised. So if you don't fill in all the gaps that you'd promised during your campaigns, you then use them as a scapegoat, and then the next politician or your competitor reinforces that. But he says, yes, absolutely, now I am going to get rid of the immigrants. So it became a tool that could be used, to hype up emotions, and it did whip up emotions. People became, there was a time they had a van going around in London telling immigrants to go back home, and it was government sponsored, and it had all these big speakers shouting out and so on. And it's become an emotive electioneering point,
with the
sadly.
and all.
Yeah.
Back to the issue of role playing by politicians, actually. So we've looked at Trump. We also know, for example, now we're talking the UK, Boris Johnson. He is known to to be well educated, highly educated. He's actually somebody who's been mayor of London as well. And during all this time when he's playing politics, there's a demeanor, some sort of demeanor that he takes up in politics. And the question you were asking earlier, City, is at what point does he actually go and remove the coat and go back to himself, right? Or is there such a thin line between them?
Or does a coat become part of his skin?
If we bring it back to Kenya, we've seen politicians in Kenya who actually are known to have either they are very quick to speak on some issues. If there's a comment to be made by a politician in Kenya, this is going to come from so-and-so.
You can expect so-and-so to be the
so-and-so is going to come and say this, or so-and-so is going to react and say
in this manner, until you have to question the quality of actually what comes out of their mouth.
Of what they're saying.
Right.
And you start wondering, so have they taken up that role and decided, you know what, guys, I'm the guy who will be doing this. I'm the guy who will be the dog that barks the loudest.
I think there's a naivety with which we're
point.
approaching this. Excuse me. that naivety being, we're assuming people are inherently good, or CT is coming from that point and saying, so what happens when they're bad? Is it that they turn bad because of the position? The politician knows full well at any given point that he's acting. He's always, we're semi-conscious in terms of our environment. The politician is highly, highly conscious of everything he's saying and the impact it has on his audience. It's always an act. He's got two minds in him. I wouldn't say role play. It's another part of him. It's an extension of him.
But what's acting really?
And if that is something that he or she is putting out there, it's being put out to people. They then take on that this is how this individual actually is. So whether they're acting or not, whatever they're putting out there is what is swallowed up and thought to be what this individual is. And they are not able to separate that narrative from who this individual actually may be. And so then they wear this costume, and that is what is seen by everybody else. This electorate, this group of people that they're pandering to with this costume that they're wearing for this particular act, it becomes who they are. Whether that was their intention or not, it becomes who they are to the people that they're performing for.
But isn't that part and parcel of life? I don't know if you're really you, CT. Do you see what I mean? Everybody could be manipulative. Who knows what face you're wearing when you're dealing with people, whether it's at work.
Suggesting that I'm a different form of
when it comes to...
I don't know. You could be lovely to me here and somebody else, in your other workplace.
When it comes to...
Who knows? And why should politicians be put through this rigorous process to prove that they are who they really are?
Whereas they are leading
in any situation, at work, you could be anybody.
Because they're leading a country.
That's the monkey big in public life.
They're leading a country.
You still have a right to a private life.
They realize that you left.
Everybody has a right to a private life, even in public life, unless it's to do with, matters of public interest, which your personality shouldn't have anything to do with it.
So what you're saying is that the people should know. When you look at Babu Owino, for example, you expect that he has one side that he's playing politics and another side that is different.
Absolutely. I mean, who would like him if he was the way he was at home?
So he's
let's
a
say that's
person.
What he took home to his kids and his wife. I doubt he'd have children and a wife if he was that abrasive, that aggressive, that obnoxious. Do you understand?
But it would be hard for you.
He's got to be a father.
Surprised at what people put up with. You would be surprised.
But I think they're different people, actually. What they exhibit in their public persona is completely different from who they are as people. And that's why I'm going with the role-playing bit.
What I'm saying is what you see in public is what they are. What they're at home is what they act. Yes.
It's the other way around.
Yes.
Because you cannot be in public putting on a particular act over and over and over again, and that is not who you actually are. It would be very difficult for you to do that. Look at
when he's politicking, that's his element.
That's him.
That is
when
you
he's at
in your
home,
element.
he knows I have this role as a father, a husband, or whatever, so I need to conduct myself in this way.
You don't think when he's politicking, he realizes that his audience wants him to be the person who he is? So, for instance, the utterances we heard from Babu the other day with some obscene words, he knows that excites the audience. So he's playing to the audience. It's not necessarily him. It's him to play to the audience.
Babu hasn't stopped being a student leader.
He was like that years and years and years ago.
There are things that appeal to a student population. Inflammatory things, anti-government, anti all the
that
time.
demographic.
Yes.
The youthful demographic.
Yes.
Hot-blooded.
That is understood within a college setting. But again, there are people who like that sort of rhetoric. But I'm saying the man is his rhetoric. That's the point. Let's not run away from it.
No,
that's who he is.
I think we judge them too harshly by looking at what they're doing. And what they're doing is they're feeding us in entertainment. They're basically entertaining us with what they're doing.
But these people... A call for violence is entertainment.
No. When it goes to call for violence, of course, now he's basically just pandering as well. He's still playing to the public gallery. But he's wrong.
Eric, there are people who lap that thing up and they take it seriously and they act on it. That is the problem.
And do you think those people should be able to vote?
Those people should definitely be able to vote.
Yes.
Even if they're malleable and susceptible to undue
Democracy,
influence.
my dear. Democracy.
Yes, they can still vote, but people who understand democracy better or the economy better should have more of a vote. So we go back to my weighted voting. This is where we talk about, when I tell you the electorate sometimes doesn't know what it wants or what it needs or what's good for it. Because it's like putty in the politician's hands. It's malleable, it's manipulative.
Jerry, who is manipulating who here? Think about it.
Is it the politician
or the voter? Tell me, who do you think manipulates the other here? In the absence of an audience, who and what is a politician?
If you're actually saying, yes, that they are acting, they're playing this to the audience, and they know that the person who's the boss is the audience.
It's the audience.
So they know very well that
the audience calls the shots.
The audience is the one that's controlling.
And that's why then you have to wear a different hat. And that's why you have to wear a different hat. But even look at the sentiments yesterday of Kiraitu Murungi, for example, and we're not talking about role-playing in this. They realize that it is the people that they must go back and answer to. They realize that it's the people they must go and give a record to, a scorecard. That it's the people who give them that scorecard at some point that they will go back to and say, look at what I did in the last 5 years. Give me a chance to do it again. So they realize that they know that the real bosses are the people. Even during the electioneering process, they know that they have to satisfy some needs of the general population in order for them to get where they are going. They are fully aware of that. And that is why they put on the costume and the hat to act in certain ways at certain times, because they know that they must feed into the desires and expectations of this general population.
So if we listen to this one, for example.
Na niseme ya kwamba pole, najua makamu wa rais na rais hawataki tuongee siasa. Lakini ni nyinyi mmetufanya tuanze kuongea hii maneno, kwa sababu kama juzi tulikuwa tunatafutia kura kwa kazi nyingine ngumu sana. Tulikuwa na mheshimiwa wenu hapa Kago wa Lydia. Wacha niwaambie story kidogo. Tukaenda huko Nyamira kuomba kura. Tunakuta watu wamekaa kama hivi. Hata hajui kama ni harusi ama ni nini. Sisi tunaingia tu. Tunasema na wale watu tunaweza kuwaomba kura. Tunaingia tu. Ni nini iko hapa? Tukaambiwa ni mazishi. Sasa vile MC ananijua, mimi najulikana kila pahali, akanijua akaniambia Mheshimiwa Moses kule kuja ongea na hao watu. Mimi hata sijui nani amekufa. Sasa mimi nikaanza kusema huyu mama ambaye ametuacha, nikabua MC akakuja akaniambia ni mzee ametuacha. Sasa mimi nikaendelea nikasema hata wiki jana tulikuwa tumeongea. MC sana tena akakuja akaniambia alirudi kutoka ng'ambo jana. Sasa nikaongea halafu nikasema wale watoto wamewacha, sisi kama serikali tuangalia. Sasa MC akakuja akaniambia alikuwa padri. Sasa unaona ile masaibu tunapitia. Sikupenda kwetu ni hii kazi mlitupatia siasa. Kwa hivyo hata tukikuja hapa tukiongea
and we know it. So on this particular one, this is just a light moment by Moses Kuria. He's gone into he's looked at how am I going.
That man is incendiary.
Ice breaking.
That what you've just played.
Yeah.
That, my friend, is serious icing. And in fact, when you hear, you wonder. So this is one side of Kuria. The side we're used to listening to is completely inflammatory. Completely. So which is which?
He's a different guy. He's a good guy.
Same guy?
Yeah.
It's not different. Same guy.
Same guy.
Same guy.
This is the same guy.
Jana Ruto alisema hivi, leo Raila anajibu, kesho Ruto anasema kalenye mweke nyeno.
Censored. Of course, he was saying he was referring to the brand name Gucci. And not that word by the Kikuyu word. But you see, so you have two sides of this man, but also you also have a third side. The gentleman called Moses Kuria is actually, those who have interacted with him tell you he's an intelligent man. He's a brilliant man. When it comes to matters of finance, economics, he's a brilliant man. He was a manager at Standard Chartered Bank when he was in his 20s. He was a regional manager of a global bank. In his late 20s, early 30s. He's somebody who's worked abroad.
Has he paid you, Eric?
Actually, no.
I mean, what is this? An ode to Moses Kuria? He's a decent enough fella.
Let's call it that.
Don't get me wrong.
So let's call it that. An ode to Moses Kuria. Saying that But you see, this is one side of somebody, and then there's the other side.
So then why...
it's possible that what the politicians are actually doing is they put on a coat, they come to the public, and then they have a different code. They go and remove that code and they get home.
But he's admitted that himself.
The real side is not the political side. The real side is the home side.
Well, both sides can sit side by side.
But
you heard him say about the funerals. They're reading off a script as well. So, they know what the public wants to hear.
This is a funeral.
He said, and we say this, oops, okay, this
Again,
context
again.
is slightly different from the usual run-of-the-mill script. So they read off a script. They know what the public wants to hear. They know how to manipulate them and influence them to their advantage, which is what politicians do so they can get in. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's a contest. You know, the most likable person will get in. It's not to say that they don't have good intentions when they get in, but they will, you know, by any means possible get in and then have to dance to their tune once they're in. But it's not to say they're not doing good in Parliament whilst they're in. They're not contradictory, the personalities that exist within a politician. So yes, he'll dance to their tune on the podium and maybe go home and be a calm guy, but it can be the same guy. I have different sort of pillars to me, different aspects to me. I can be excitable, I can be serious, I can be Kenyan, I can be English, I can be, name it. And it's none of it is an act. But I know which audience I'm playing to depending on who I'm speaking to. I'm sure if you put Moses Courier in front of a panel of intellects, he'll be very intellectual. You put him in front of an audience in, you know, a young, youthful audience at university, yes, he'll go wild.
You know, the unfortunate thing with leadership is that it's not, the activities that pertain to leadership are not performed in the dark.
It's in the open.
You're in the public arena, and this is where you're judged.
All the time.
Yes. And where I'm coming from is what we see, because this is what influences people. The boardroom discussions, when you have a quiet word with investors, nobody sees or hears this. The result of it may benefit them or not, but they don't know. But these utterances, we've seen what these utterances have done. Not can do, have done. We've seen it in this country, not our neighboring country.
And what's your point, CT, that these guys are acting and yet we're lapping up that act and acting on it?
No. Let me start again. I said these people are who they are. And I said all these things that we consider acting, they are not acting. This is what they actually are. The elevation to this position gives us an opportunity for them to actually come onto their own, to actually be what they are. Because
this platform allows them to self-actualize.
Yes, exactly. Yes, this atmosphere, this environment. Because within that same environment, there are people who just never change.
So basically you're saying we should stop excusing them and saying, no, this is a good person.
You shouldn't excuse them.
So
what you're seeing is it.
Is it?
Believe what they're showing you.
We
That's
should
what
judge.
Don't pretend it's something else.
Or don't say
what
that
you're seeing is what it is.
Or don't say that it will be a different
believe them.
Yeah,
just
believe them,
please,
because they're telling you over and over again.
And you're busy making excuses for them and saying, but you know what?
No, he's just joking today.
He's just being humorous. No, he doesn't actually mean this. He's saying it. What could he possibly mean other than that?
That's for only few and far between discerning people like you, yourself, and
Jerry, you've actually complimented
others.
Me. Oh, goodness gracious me. Hi.
Discerning you are. It's not to say I agree with your viewpoints.
Wow. This is wonderful.
So it's only a few people that would think he's acting, and this is the problem. Most people will buy into who he is and are out there believing him. You know, when he's doing
most
mass
people
rallies.
are buying into it because that is what he continues to show.
It's not buying
day after day.
It's just taking the person for who they are.
But they're telling us who they are.
Why am I what I'm saying? Why should we believe something else?
And I can't see it.
Because they come on repetitively saying the same thing.
Yes.
They use different ways to say the same thing over and over again. Why should I believe something else? Why should I think that they're acting if this is the same thing that they tell me over and over again?
I am busy reconstructing something that has presented itself for what it is, and then I am the one who's reconstructing it. Why? Look, we all watch movies. Now, one of the things that there's an aspect of movie watching that I have found intriguing when they talk about undercover policemen, and usually it's drug-related issues. And what always comes to the fore, and people who study psychology will tell you that this is actually true. When one is in a certain environment, with time, you actually get to empathize with the people you work with. There's something they call the Stockholm Syndrome, where it was from an abduction, a situation that arose in Stockholm, hence the term Stockholm Syndrome, where the abductee starts identifying with the abductor.
Falls in love with.
Yes, and takes, later in America, we had situations where an heiress took up this very role. Her very captors and the people she did, not just emulating, she became part of this. Now, they say that policemen will even forget what they actually went there to do in the first place, and they start empathizing with the drug lords and the drug dealers and start thinking like them. Politicians enter an arena and they enter this club. Unique club, none like it, none. There's no bigger club where privileges galore. You can pay yourself what you like when you want. You can increase. You can more or less do what you like. Now, those are the godlike qualities I was talking about.
Yeah.
And they've been allowed to do it. Are you telling me that they cannot do the same thing to ensure that the lives of their people are changed permanently?
That is why, I wanted to say, the way in which we have learned this system, obviously it's something that has been learned. We didn't just get it one day and then it became part of us. It has been learned. Do you mean to tell me that the same way that we learn a system, take it on? Because we can see it being, we talked about it, the prefect situation in schools. We talked about it in different arenas. When you get a public position or when you get a managerial position in a corporate office, you learn what would be. They even expect you to get a bigger car because of the position that you're in. Can we not then now unlearn that, or then learn where now we use it for the good of the people? Why can't we do that? If it was so able for us to imbibe this way of doing things, why can we now then not imbibe another? Why can't we, with the end goal of making sure that the people are benefiting in a positive way? It continues to be the question. Why can that not be the way in which we go? Why can't we do that?
You know, there's a very simple principle in investing, and it's something many of our leaders who've taken on this fast-growing culture of thievery don't seem to get. When money is spent for what it's intended, the economy actually grows.
Grows, exactly.
When it grows, there's more for everybody.
And we can all have more. You can have more.
Actually, you can have more, rightfully, without you having to hit anybody on the head. But because of the selfish nature, selfish. Well, what I call it?
Selfless.
Selfish.
This morning, did I say selfish?
You should say selfish, yes, because of the selfish nature.
Yes. You find that isn't the case. People focus on what will benefit them. Now, you can't tell me they don't know what they're doing. That's them.
That's who they are.
That's who they are.
Absolutely
as people.
who they are. Because if you want to tell me that, okay, for example, you mentioned that stellar individual was a manager at this point. Why can't that part of who he is, being able to manage properly, being able to do 1, 2, 3 in a proper manner, being able to manage people, why can't that side of things come out?
Why is that not the prominent public side?
Why is that not the side that we see?
Right? The prominent public side.
Okay. Take a look at our counties. Okay. 47 counties. But only 3 or 4 governors are mentioned every once in a while. Why them? For the good thing. Why? Just 3 or 4. Not more. Why?
And now that you actually talk about governors, let's talk about the All Africa Advisors report and the governors rejecting it. And let's conduct our own poll this morning. The worst performing and the best performing governors. Good morning. It's 29 minutes to 8 o'clock.
96.0 Spice FM, Nakuru.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelogue. Travelogue is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelogue, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelogue, Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up. .7 Spice FM, Mombasa.
All right, Waiaki was actually moving very smoothly this morning. Not as much traffic as expected for Friday morning, but hey, let's take advantage while we can. There's traffic on Langata Road, Kama Kawaida, as is said, and heading towards the Nyayo Stadium, the T-Mall roundabout, and then heading out towards Nyayo Stadium. It's not so bad this morning. Mombasa Road, Green Park Estate, Athi River is moving very well, heading towards town. We're going to hit a bottleneck when we get to GM, unfortunately, coming out of Cabanas, heading now towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. We're not going to have too much of a problem. It's moving slowly, but however, it is moving. Any alternatives that you find, do let us know. We can keep traffic moving this morning. 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You're in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation, at 94.4 in Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 in Nyeri, 97.6 in Malindi. Well, the Situation Room this morning, I'm Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Jerry Thorne, and C.T. Muga are also in the room. We have been discussing the quality of leaders that we have, and then now let's talk about the quality of governors that we have, because we elected governors a couple of years ago. This is the second government in devolution, right? So on Tuesday, a London-based All Africa Advisors report released a report on ranking of counties, in which they said that Mombasa, Machakos Governor Alfred Mutua is the best performing, and then they said it's followed by Kakamega's, and then by Makueni's, and then by Nairobi's, and the least worst performing governor, according to that report, was the one from Kiambu, Ferdinand Waititu. Of course, the Council of Governors came and dismissed that report, saying All Africa Advisors, the London-based organization, has no place to conduct a survey in Kenya. All counties are not comparable. Each government has got its strengths. It has got its weaknesses. There's nothing that can demonstrate that devolution is not working in the country. We should not be looking at such reports. In fact, telling the media, don't look at such a report. In fact, we had even discussed that report here and said, well, who are these All Africa Advisors? Where have they come from? This morning, let's forget about the All Africa Advisors. Let's talk about the All Kenyan voters. Because you belong to a certain county, we'd love to know who is your best and who's your worst performing governor in the Republic of Kenya. You agree with the All Africa report at any point that, Ferdinand Waititu would be the worst? Would be ranked worst?
No, it was, I looked at their strategy and their methodology. It was very basic, whereby it was a matter of perceptions, and I think they spoke to they called it a cross-section of each county. If I remember the figure correctly, it was 10 people from each county asking a certain number of questions, and they managed to,
the sample size was 110 to begin with. 10.
Absolutely, and you wonder what questions they would ask, whether they would be leading. And we know as Kenyans, when you're asked a question, you can answer. I don't trust surveys in this country, by virtue of the fact that Kenyans will answer what they think you want them to hear as well.
What they want you to hear.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's not something I trust. And then I looked at the background of the company. It seemed to me like a fly-by-night company. Good morning. Hello? Oh, I thought I had somebody on the phone line there. Sorry. My apologies. So yes, the methodology, I don't think, was up to standard. It wasn't up to par for me to consider a good scorecard for governors. And then secondly, I looked at the background of the company. It was founded only a couple of years ago, 4 years ago. And the fact that these are people from the UK coming into Kenya, we've had this where we have consultants coming to tell us what to do without a good understanding of the historical background, the social background, what people actually want, the cultural aspects as well, without an understanding of that. So for me, it sounded like a group of people who had been paid to make Mutua look good. He's very good with PR. Remember, he worked in the president's office of PR. So for me, it wasn't something I'd take very seriously. What did you think of it, CT?
This one, I agree with you 100%. Mm-hmm. Yes. We've been set up. Mm-hmm. Yes. So somebody engineered something so that it can be presented. And you bring in other people who look good because you want yourself to look good.
Yeah, and this notion, you know what really, what I was vexed about? That you think it's more trustworthy or has more legitimacy because it's people from England that you've brought here, you know? We still have that mentality that the West is more trustworthy than we are, given what they're going through at the moment with Brexit and how they've duped the whole nation.
Yeah.
You know?
That report actually had ranked Dr. Alfred Mutua of Machakos as the number one, right?
Yeah.
And others. I've got Alfred Mutua on the line. He's called us this morning. Good morning, Dr.
Here we go.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, good morning. Habari asubuhi.
Mzuri sana. How are you?
Good morning.
Yes.
You're in the Situation Room. This is Eric Latif. Also, CT Muga, Njeri Thorn, and Ndu Oko are in the Situation Room.
Thank you.
And this morning we are discussing the recently released All Africa Advisors report, which of course the Council of Governors dismissed. But this report had ranked you as number one.
Yeah, it was quite a surprise because I think for me, I'm pleased as I should be, because out of 47 other governors, they could have ranked anybody else number one. And the fact that this organization sent us information. I remember very clearly. I did get self-assessment questionnaires that were sent to my government, which actually held a cabinet meeting to discuss it. And we took about 2 to 3 weeks to actually fill this questionnaire. It was very, very difficult. I'm aware also, I was told by the my ward administrators and others that there were researchers that were going to every village demanding to see every borehole, demanding to see every road, interviewing people. So we were aware the research was going on for the last 3 months. And I think all governors were aware, to tell you the truth, because I think they were sent if I got it. And I remember talking to a few governors, and I know my county secretary talked to a few county secretaries, and they're all filling out the questionnaires. So I know that the research was undertaken. So I'm pleased that outsiders, who I think I had the issue of people considering them to be better than us, but I think outsiders who are considered to be fair, who don't have any political leanings, can come up with a list based on actual work that has been done. So,
would you be able to give us a sample, Dr. Mutua, of some of the work that you feel has been done in your government that would warrant them such a position to have then been given to you? What kind of work, what can we see in terms of development in your government or in your county?
Yes, I think it comes to several things. The first one is about infrastructure. You know, when you build infrastructure, that actually grows the economy. And it is out there in public domain. I'm the only governor basically who's built tarmac roads and highways. I've done Kilimani, Maktumamwala, 33 kilometers. I've opened up areas, Masinga, another 20 kilometers, another 15 kilometers. So I've constructed about 200 kilometers of tarmac roads, opened up areas. But also I've dealt with the basics. You know, people say Ukambani, there's no water, there's no food. So, you know, I've dug 440 boreholes with actually GPS coordinates. Anybody can go and see them. With solar panels, I've dug over 400 dams, weirs, and ponds. So we've harvested water. We've piped over 360 kilometers of piped water to homes. Women don't have to walk 10 kilometers anymore. We've revolutionized how healthcare is done. I have an ambulance in every location that gets to you 7 to 8 minutes at the maximum when you call it. I think we have the fastest response next to South Africa in the region, in the whole of African continent, and we've been hailed for that. We've revamped our hospitals. We have the new cancer center that no other county has. We've also looked at food security. Machakos has been removed from the list of food relief. Why? Because we bought 40 tractors, which we gave to every ward. So we expand the land that needs to be cultivated. We give free seeds to farmers. We have free chickens to farmers and subsidized fertilizers. So we worked hard to get Machakos removed from the shame of food relief. So these are some. I have Mulika Muizis basically in every village. I have put more street lights in Mulika Muizis than any other county. So I think these are the things that I'm proud of, that I have been able to initiate in my government. There are more people focused that have actually grown the economy of Machakos and rolled back poverty. And maybe that is what they saw as something that has really generated growth.
So in this report, Dr. Mutua, that the All Africa Advisors report, you're saying that they sent you some questionnaires which you are filling like a self-assessment. What kind of questions?
They did,
what kind of questions were they asking in the questionnaire?
They were very specific. They wanted you to list if it's road network, for example. They wanted to list the number of tarmac roads, the number of graded roads, all that, and you provide documentary evidence. And then now that's when they sent the people with the questionnaires, I believe, to come and verify what you said was the truth. I think they said, I read in the newspaper that it was a European standard NEPAD type of self-assessment that they do, and then they do verification against it. They were asking us about the cost of land. They were asking us about the number of houses that are roofed.
Okay.
They were asking us about things like accessibility to health and water. Basically things that are in the United Nations, what do you call them? The what do they call them? These targets.
Development
goals. SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals.
SDGs. So I think those are the things that they are dealing with.
Why then would the Council of Governors go back and say that they are not aware of this assessment having been conducted across the country?
I think that at the root of this, Dr. Mutua, if I may interject, who commissioned this survey?
I don't know. I think it comes down to, according to the organization, from what I could read, was that this is the kind of things they do because they are interested in getting people who fund projects within the continent. I suspect.
So they did this for free, or they weren't commissioned to do this?
No, I think they are commissioned by maybe European nations. I have a feeling they were commissioned by somebody outside this country who wanted that report. Because somebody called me actually, I was in the middle of a meeting, and I got to turn on the TV, and I heard them say that this data is available, especially to development partners and others. So I think there are other people interested. And they also say the data is bigger than this. It was not just about governors.
So people have come
for Kenyan data. Yeah.
People have come into our country and then into our counties. We don't know who they are, who's commissioned them, and we're willing to give them all this information with no knowledge of who these people are. You don't think that's dangerous? Would we be able, as a Kenyan from Thika, could they go to England and go to the different boroughs and get this much information from the elected leaders of the boroughs? We don't know who these people are.
Well, I think it's up to anybody to do their own due diligence.
Did you do any due diligence to find out who commissioned this survey?
We did due diligence. We looked at it. We called our colleagues in London. We found out whether they were a reputable firm. We said yes, and they did it.
Okay.
And I'm a researcher myself. I mean, I used to live in the UAE. I used to live in Australia. And I remember one time I did a nationwide survey of Lebanon. And I sent documents, and I went to Beirut, and I did a survey. And I've gone to many countries. So you cannot stop researchers.
Well, we're not stopping researchers, but you have to know who they are, and you have to know who they are and what they're getting the information for. And when I asked you who commissioned it, you said you didn't know. So what due diligence was done to find out and to get to the bottom of who these people are?
I think it comes down to the fact that every research is commissioned by somebody, either the company.
But we have to know who it's commissioned by. We have a researcher in the studio.
But Dr. Mutua, usually when we have, because this seems like to be a development agenda, am I right?
It looks like a development agenda.
Yes, a development agenda, whether it's ILO, whether it's UNCTAD,
the
EU, whether it's World Bank, we tend to know, because the sort of information that we're speaking of is genuinely sensitive information if we do not know what use it's going to be put to. And the use is often made more relevant when you know who it is who commissioned. That's why my colleague is asking who commissioned it. But if we're not certain...
I fully understand.
Yes, so if we're not certain about who commissioned them, then just that one aspect raises very many other questions.
Yeah, well, but you see, it's all about speculation, and as a researcher, you shouldn't speculate. If the organization said that they are undertaking the research by themselves, what I was speculating about is, I think, picture of the kind of information they had in the makeup of the organization. Some of these organizations are usually used by the American government.
Usually, absolutely. Many organizations, research organizations are used, but they will come endorsed by the American government,
or our
by
government,
DFID, or our government.
And our government.
But this is a limited company. It's actually listed. I looked them up. It's listed as a limited company from 2015. A limited company, i.e. they have no liabilities. It's profit making. Listed as a limited company. They have come into our counties, and you have given them very sensitive information, as CT says.
Did the national government give them authority?
I don't know. I think it's an issue of what information are they asking for? They're asking information about what have you done. What type of development? They're not asking for your bank account details. They're not asking how you spent your money. They're not asking for your personal information. They are asking.
It's visible projects.
It's visible. So what they were asking was basically, let's quantify what is in the public domain. If you build a road, anybody can come and see the road.
Have they done this anywhere else before in Africa?
Or whatever. Yes, I believe they might have done it in other places. I think I heard somebody say the other day. I was reading somewhere that they did something similar in Ghana.
You were reading where and what did they do in Ghana?
I read it. If you look into the internet too,
because I searched these guys and there was actually very little information about them.
But then, Dr. Mutua, we're not trying to take you to task. We don't know, and we're actually seeking information.
And I think the key thing that we need to focus is that what do the people of Kenya want?
Yeah.
The people of Kenya don't want to be quiet. And the problem we have as Kenyans, I think, and it's good you're asking this question, but we tend to focus so much on the nitty-gritties that we lose the bigger focus. You know, we are always criticizing and pulling down everything.
And the bigger focus here is what, Dr. Mutua?
The bigger focus here is this. Are the people of Kenya getting the development that they deserve from the taxpayers' money that they pay? You know, we've got a lot of money coming to counties. We've got a lot of money in the national government. Are leaders really delivering on what Wananchi want? Are we really where we are as a Kenyan? As a Kenyan yourself, when you wake up in the morning, do you feel you are where you should be 50 years after independence? And that is the main question we need to ask ourselves. And I think
it's not in the place for...
That's a debate we should have. Yep. Is that okay? There's been this ranking. Is this ranking, can anybody else, why do you guys call yourself researchers? Why don't you undertake a similar research and plug it in and ask Kenyans, what do you really want? Have your leaders really given you what you want in a way so that leaders can actually work? Yeah.
Why do you feel that your
Dr.
colleagues...
Mutua, I'd like to move away now from the All Africa Advisors report. I mean, the COG has dismissed it. And the COG as the umbrella body has said, well, this All Africa Advisors report, we as a collective organ are not going to deal with it. So let's talk about the issues that the governors are doing in the 47 counties. And because from this phone call with you, we're going to actually invite other people to call in and give us their ranking or what they think about development in their counties. Of course, the people of Machakos are among those people that will be asking, and they'll be calling to tell us what they see on the ground versus what they expected their governors to do. So let's talk about now leadership and governance. And if you look at this is the second term of devolution and the work that was set to be done by devolution. Looking collectively, and then we shall come to Machakos, collectively, has devolution delivered what it's supposed to have delivered to the people in terms of bringing maendeleo to mashinani?
Devolution has really changed the way people live and the way power is centered and money is delivered to Wananchi on the ground. There's so many changes. Even, let's take just for example, healthcare. Healthcare was in shambles. You know, doctors never used to work. They would go put up their jacket. We know the story, public servants. But because now they are accountable to somebody who is closer, and there's this competition of trying to bring proper healthcare, you find that healthcare has really improved all over, especially for people who live in mashinani. You know, when you live in Nairobi, in the comfort of the big city, you have insurance with the big companies, you may not feel it. But if you're out there in the health facilities that have medicines, that nurses have been employed, that doctors are being trained, there's been a big change. Devolution is working. I think that devolution has really been fought the last 4 or 5 years because there are people who really want to go back to the old system of controlling resources and controlling power. But this is the best thing that has ever happened to this country. It's because we're giving people an opportunity to take care of their lives at the grassroots.
Some have argued that with devolution came along devolved corruption. Do you feel that's the case?
And that is true. I mean, but corruption is not an issue of devolution. Corruption is an issue and a problem and a cancer, basically, that is eating Kenyans.
And you personally have been summoned to respond to some audit queries recently. Do you have anything to say on the matter?
Audit queries are no more. There is no company in the world that does not have an audit query. There is no organization. Uhuru Kenyatta's government has big holes that need audit queries. Audit queries are no more. Audit queries are not corruption. You need to distinguish that. That if you are audited and told to give answers to things that are not
you're
clear,
then given time. Absolutely.
No. Corruption is where you steal people's money. And the problem is this. You know, people talk about how much money has governors been receiving out of the national budget? About 15 to 20%, 30% at most. 70% of the money remains in the national government. So when you talk about corruption, where is the mega corruption? It is up there with the 70% of the amount of money, not 47 counties with only 30% of the money.
Mr. Mutua,
so the money being lost.
No, that argument doesn't hold.
No, Dr. Corruption is corruption.
Whether or not you're doing it with the 30% of the budget or with the 70% of the budget, it's corruption.
I'm not excusing it. I'm saying in the bigger picture, you asked whether corruption has been devolved. And I'm saying, yes, it is a national problem. But as much as there's corruption in counties, there's also corruption in the national government.
Absolutely.
This is a national problem that we need to deal with. And as long as we continue electing people who we know are corrupt, as long as we continue being soft on people who are stealing money, I get very angry when I talk about corruption because the money that is out there belongs to those mamambogas.
But this is what everybody says. So who's actually culpable?
So who do we actually hold responsible? Who do we bring to book?
I think all of us have a role to play, and I believe myself, and I can proudly say this, that one of the reasons that in Machakos we've been able to do more, I believe, than many other places, is because I'm very, very careful about public money. I tell my people, let's get value for money, let's squeeze the shilling, because this is not personal money. If you want to make money, get into business.
All right.
If it is public money, why are we building roads in the national government is building roads at 100 million a kilometer, whereas in other countries you can build them at less? I'm building roads in Machakos at 15 million per kilometer that are actually
good quality roads that are lasting.
Good quality. I built Kilimani Makimamwala 5-6 years ago. It is still there today, and I invite you to come to my office. I take you around this project. Bring your camera, road. Bring your microphones. All the community roads I've built over 6 years ago are still there in good shape, as well as as good as roads built at 100 million shillings a kilometer. Well, as mine I built at 15 million kilometers. So let us not delude ourselves. Kenya has a lot of money.
Dr. Mutua, I think one thing that's very important for us to one thing that would be very important for us to try and understand also is one thing that we do say about development is that if we look at one place that development has been able to work and we look at a country as a whole, in order to propagate development, then we should be able then to replicate what has worked in one place and then be able to now have that mirrored or actually then developed in other parts of the country. What is it that you have done that clearly has worked from what you are saying that has worked that then has not been able to work in other parts of the country, where we have projects that have not been able to be finished, where we have issues that have been issues for the last 7 years, and we still have issues of development that we've not taken ourselves in a forward trajectory? What is it that you say you have done? I mean, you've been able to build roads at less the cost. You've been able to make sure that you have healthcare being sorted out. Why is it that this has worked and it's not able to work in other areas of the country?
Some of it is working in other areas of the country. I mean, I went to Kakamega the other day and I saw some of the things that Oparanya is doing. I've been to other counties. Counties are also working and we are copying from each other. But for me, it is basically my methodology, the way I work. And the way I work is very simple, is that we've got a finite amount of money in our hands. How do we make this money gain value? What are the 20% things that you can do to get us the 80% as they do in business? That is my style. And I cut out cartels. If I'm purchasing things, instead of doing open tenders for middlemen, I go straight to the factory. So I get things at factory price. That means that if I have 10 million, I'll buy things that other people are buying using 30 million. Okay. So I'm left with 20 million to put in other works. So my people benefit more. But also, I don't cut deals. I don't take bribes. I don't tell people inflate the prices so that I can get a 10%. I don't. I squeeze the person, give me money so they can get the least amount of money, so that majority of the savings comes to my people of Machakos. And I think that is one thing that has made me successful in that way. Any contractor who comes to Machakos, call them. They will tell you, Mutua never asks for money. And actually, people who try to think that I want some money, I actually get very angry because I squeeze them to a point that they don't even their profits are so low they can't share anything with anybody else.
Okay. We don't doubt your integrity and we don't doubt your performance. What I do have an issue with is, of course, who commissioned this particular survey, how it was done, the methodology, and who's behind it. But can I politicize things a little bit, Dr. Mutua, while we have you online? You've done your 2 terms, or you'll have
in 1 minute, please.
Okay, you'd have done your 2 terms by 2022. What after that?
Well, I've already declared. I declared this about a year ago that after I finish my term, and God willing, I do a good job in Machakos, which I'm doing, I am going to run for presidency. I'm going to run for the higher office because I'm a young man. I have the energy, and I'm not going to retire at my age, and I can't continue being the governor. And I believe that there is nothing that other leaders have that we don't have.
Absolutely.
There is no other skill that they have that we don't have. And I have lived overseas. I've lived in the US. I have lived in Australia. I've lived in the UAE.
You said,
I grew up very poor, and I know that we can change. We don't have to be poor in this country. I mean, people in Europe and people in Australia and South America were not created by God, and we were created by the devil. We can also enjoy a good life.
And who do you have in mind as your running mate?
That in time it will come. It will have to be somebody who is also like-minded.
Okay.
Somebody who knows that it's about service. Get in there for your 10 years and do a good job and revolutionize this country forever.
A woman, perhaps.
Dr. Alfred Mutua, the Machakos governor, thank you very much for calling us this morning. We wish you all the best in the remainder of your term, and of course in your next journey as you campaign for the presidency.
Asante sana, I really appreciate that, and I'm very glad, and I praises be to God for this opportunity to serve. And I'm happy. I know you have questions about the polling and everything, but I'm happy they could have declared anybody else number one. Why me? You know what I mean?
Well done.
Thank you.
So why me? Why me? So I'm happy that the work has been seen. And please follow me on Twitter. Follow me on Facebook.
Well done,
Plugging
Dr.
yourself
Mutua.
in there.
Fantastic.
Fantastic, Dr. Mutua.
Asante
Thank
sana,
you.
Dr. Mutua. Well, it's coming to 8 o'clock. So we are opening up the phone lines now. Who do you think is the best performing governor? And who do you think? Who would you rank last? You know, from all, it's about perception. It's about what you've seen on the ground. It's about what the governor has done for you in your constituency, in your county rather, and what you have seen the governor doing. Well, good morning. It's 8 o'clock, 0719 012 600. I'm opening up the phone lines. Call in now.
All right, looking at the situation on the roads right now and seeing what we have. Mombasa Road, not much of an issue. Mbagathi Way from Timor roundabout heading towards the City Mortuary roundabout is moving very slowly. But the opposite lane now heading to town in the opposite direction is actually quite clear. All right, we still have the issues with traffic on Thika Road because of the construction of the road. The good thing is about that these constructions will end and hopefully they will sort out the traffic mess. All right, Mombasa Road, not so much of an issue now that cars are moving, heading towards the Nyayo Stadium roundabout. And the issues on Waiyaki Way still continue, like I said, but they will get better. Anything definitely out of the ordinary you need to know about, please do give us a call or send us a message. 0719 012 600.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room. The only way to start
it's 2 minutes
your
past
day.
8 o'clock. The Situation Room is hot. Kenya's biggest conversation. 0719 012 600. We are talking about devolution. Well, we've set aside the All Africa Advisors Report, just like the Council of Governors has done, and now we are opening up the poll of the poll of polls. This is the Situation Room poll. Would love to know what you think about the performance of governors. And I've got Honorable Grace Kiptun on the line. Good morning, madam.
Good morning. How are you?
Salama kabisa. Welcome to the Situation Room this morning. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah.
Now, you, how would you rate your governor?
Well, I would want to start by.
I knew I was putting you right on the spot.
Yeah, the leadership issue that you have been discussing.
Yeah.
Yes. I hear you talking as if the wananchi are cool recipients of development. You see, this is like a drama or a theater where the leaders may get in there with the best of intentions, only to find the wananchi have got a different expectations. Whereby when the leaders do what they are supposed to do as per law provided, you find that that is not what the people want. Most of them, they would want the handouts, they want you to pay their fees, to deliver their wives and things like that. So they derail these leaders.
So is it because the people do not understand what your role should be, or is it because that's what they want your role to be?
I think they are not well exposed. Our voters are never well exposed. And in most cases, you find the laws that we pass in Parliament does not cascade down to, there is no proper civic education for the people. So they don't really get to understand. They find leaders are there to bring money and give it to them.
But also, is there a role that the leaders need to play to ensure that they educate the people on that then?
Yeah, they try their best, but I believe that there should be a very dedicated line of civic education to the people so that they understand. Because when they feel that when you do projects, I'm telling you, so many politicians went home last time because they concentrated on projects. They forgot the politics.
Are you among those?
I think so.
So you think that, you focused on delivering on projects, and yet the people wanted handouts.
They want handouts, they want the Rambe money, they want you to pay fees, they want you to go to party, they want everything. That is socially and things which ought to be their own responsibility.
Okay, Grace, now let's talk about devolution.
Yeah.
And looking at all the 47 counties.
Mm-hmm.
From where you sit, not because you are a former, immediate former woman rep for Baringo, but from where you sit as a Kenyan, and what you see in the public, which county do you think is actually performing very well? In other words, which governor is actually performing very well?
Kakamega.
Who?
Kakamega.
The Kakamega governor, that's Oparanya.
Yeah.
Why do you say so?
Because of the things that we see on the ground, like the health centers that he has been able to put at the hospital, and the benefits to the wananchi, for instance.
These are projects. These are projects that is actually put in place, and the people can actually see the effects of these projects having been established, and they actually see that it's trickling down to them in terms of the benefit that they get. I dare say that when we got into a culture of handouts is when we saw that initiatives having been established by members of parliament, for example, or people in position of leadership, the benefits did not actually trickle down to the people. And that is when we got into this culture of, okay, fine, since I cannot see the benefit of what you're doing for me in government, then let me ask you for a handout, because then I see an immediate result from what I'm able to get for you. So now when we see that projects are actually happening, you'll find that the people are happy, because when the projects and the benefits of such projects then are trickling down to the people and they're able to see the benefit of it, then really when somebody comes in an electioneering mode, they're not going to be asking for these handouts as they would, because they can see that when you get into a position of leadership, you will do something that will definitely benefit us as a people.
Mheshimiwa, could I ask you a question, please?
Yeah.
Do you know of any politician who's actually ascended to the office of, say, being an MP or an MCA without necessarily giving handouts?
I don't know of any of them.
I know of one, actually. The current governor.
Maybe the young man from Meru. You remember that MP?
On the bicycle.
Yep.
Yes. But
those are exceptions to the general rule now.
And CT knows another one.
Well, I know one, the gentleman called Otichilo. Yes, he wasn't known for giving handouts. That was the thing. He was known for not giving handouts. That's what he was known for.
Those could be exceptions to the general rule, but in the majority parts of Kenya, people will accept.
I tend to agree with you, but then I would ask a second question. So, which came first, the handout being given by the politicians or the people demanding the handouts?
Demanding the handout.
Which one came first?
I think the leaders who came before were the ones who encouraged the handing of the handouts.
So they created a
then
monster.
Then it became a culture.
Yes.
And they kind of believe that if you turn around, or even, for instance, when the leaders come during an election time, should you go, for instance, with Brado? Another guy comes with a raffle. Yeah. You know, they will sit and measure the diameter of the tire. Yeah. And who will give their vote to this one?
Which one is bigger?
Yeah. Instead of focusing on the ability of the leader, what is in this guy for us?
What is he promising to do for us?
Yeah, they are looking at other factors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grace, thank you very much for calling this morning.
Thank you.
Asante sana for joining us. Also joining from Kericho is Winnie. Good morning, Winnie.
Good morning. How are you guys?
Good, thank you.
Good morning.
Good. You're doing a good job, but I'm not quite amused with the way we've handled Mr. Mutua. That notwithstanding, I want to say that he's done a really good job. And I'm not talking about what I've had, because I've seen and compared what he's done to what my governor in Kericho, for instance, is doing. I mean, Kericho is supposed to be the best county. We have good weather, we have good soil, we have population that I would say is very enlightened. And what's happening there? Nothing. And then you go to Machakos, there's no rain, there's nothing. And the governor has done a very good job. That's notwithstanding, I think this report is being disregarded because naturally you do not want your colleague to look like he's done a very good job with the money that he's been given. And so you will shut it down. It's the kawaida politics of Kenya. And I was really hoping that you guys in that room would separate
the wheat from the chaff.
Exactly, and really give this person an opportunity to tell us what he's done and probably learn from what he's done. What the other media is doing is, playing the game, giving people what they want to hear and not necessarily supporting people who are doing the right job. And I think for me, this is what I expect to see from Spice FM. This is what you have done all along. Please give people a chance, people who are doing well, an opportunity to shine, and let's learn from them. Mr. Mutua has my vote. He runs for presidency. I would rather vote for someone who has a track record, even if it's not as good as I would expect it. But at least he's doing something with the resources. He's professionalized.
Yeah,
the management of government.
We're not disputing that Dr. Alfred Mutua has done a great job in Machakos. You've said that we shouldn't disregard the survey as such, but why should we regard it? Because if we regard it, if we take it on, we can take any survey on. We were trying to look at the credentials behind this, who commissioned it, who is behind it. Because it's very easy for somebody to put together a company in the UK and come and do a survey here and have it publicized. It's very easy to mislead Kenyans. So we're making sure that Kenyans aren't misled. We're not for 1 minute suggesting Governor Mutua has not done a good job in Machakos.
Okay, so this is what I would expect from you guys. I would expect you to also get facts of your own. Okay? So that even as we're looking at that report that was shared, you're also saying, hey, you know what? You can actually confirm that this happened. Let's not just sit and talk. I think it's about time that we moved out there and really get to see what everyone is doing. Kakamega is doing well, but hey, let the truth be said. Machakos is doing really well. Let's not put every county on the same playing field because the situation is not the same as these counties.
Okay.
And then my Kericho governor needs to already plan his exit because we are really fed up. I think I can run the county government better than he does as a professional, and we need to professionalize how we do this thing.
Winnie, I thank you for your very positive perspective, but one of the things that we also look at is the social media and what people comment. Now, we are privy to comments that people make, and there are many people who are saying that what Dr. Alfred Mutua is saying is not entirely true. So you are right. We probably need to go there. For every statement he utters, there are people who say they're from the county who are saying that some of these things he's telling us are not exactly the way he's saying it. Now, these are debates that have gone on and off in the papers continuously, and we actually expect them. And what we do understand also, Dr. Mutua is a politician. And when you are on air, the entire country hears you. We do not expect him to tell us of his failures. We expect him to tell us of his successes and even amplify them somewhat. That we expect him to do. And he has a platform and he is right to do so. We will take you up on yacht and we will go to Machakos and we will verify some of these things.
Please, and share the same on social media.
Oh, we will. We will.
Winnie, thank you very much for calling this morning.
Have a good day.
Have a good day. 0719-012-600. Simon, good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you? Welcome to the Situation Room. You are here with Eric Latif, C.T. Muga, Jerry Thorne, and Nduoko.
Thank you. You people are doing a great job.
Asante sana.
Thank you, Simon.
And now, one thing about, in particular about Dr. Mutua. He cannot say that because then he said one thing that because the national government is being audited or there are audit queries on how they have used funds.
Yes, we're listening to you.
Yeah, that there shouldn't be a problem in him being queried because also the national government is being queried. Specifically, I would like to say that is not, as a leader, that is not a way of reasoning that because someone else is like if you commit a crime and you say someone else committed a crime, I shouldn't be asked.
I'll defend him in this instance. What he was saying is queries are very normal. A query isn't an accusation of corruption. A query is
a normal process.
Something is missing, some paperwork is missing, and you're given time to respond. I think that is what he was trying to say, that queries are very normal. He wasn't saying corruption is very normal. He wasn't saying other people have committed corruption and so it's okay at county level. What he was trying to emphasize is the point that queries happen all the time with big companies, multinationals and so on, and counties and ministries as well.
Simon, to ask you, who's your best performing governor? What is the model county for you?
Ideally none.
Oh, wow.
Why do you say
none?
that?
Because okay, I happen to come from Muranga County. Okay, that is my home county. I reside in Nairobi, Kamete Road.
Yeah.
I would say for Mutua, maybe back to Mutua again. There are basics that if for example you are to rank governors, there should be a criteria for ranking them. Say, for example, he used the term SDG, maybe used by the UN to rank countries or counties per se.
Yep.
One of the ways of ranking a county is basic needs like water. You see, one day I happened to be in his county for a business venture, and I spent the night in a hotel, or you can say an establishment there.
Yes, I understand.
And I noted that they are struggling to provide water. And you see, water is basic.
So you're saying that in terms of provision of
so
water.
So I happened to ask the caretaker or the person who seemed to take care of things there. I asked him, how come there is no water, or you are struggling to provide the residents or your customers with water? And you see now, he explained to me that they have sunk a borehole. And it's in Machakos town, actually. This one is in Machakos, Machakos.
So he's saying they have sunk a borehole, and why is the borehole not producing water?
So they are struggling because now, okay, maybe they have a problem with they have another problem now with the power, how to pump water from the...
So it was an issue of power, and they have a borehole, but they have not been able to provide water to the patrons of their hotel or their premise.
No, ideally,
because
the responsibility of the county government ideally, the county government should provide piped water.
Okay, yes, indeed.
Piped water. Actually, it shouldn't be the responsibility of an investor to
sink a borehole.
Actually, if you are to put it differently, but that is what is happening in each and every county. And these governors have taken advantage of. You see, like in Muranga now, where I come from, is that they've taken advantage of people not being informed. The residents there are maybe not informed of their rights. So if they provide a service, they literally make it like a personal. It's like
a personal favor.
It's like a favor, but literally it should be the other way around.
It's a job that they have to do, and they should be doing it.
That is why they were voted.
So this is the reason why, Simon, you're saying, according to you, all governors have underperformed.
Actually, ranking. Okay, anyway.
If you were to rank, how would you rank?
You see, I've mentioned like basic things like water.
Water, yes.
Piped water, yeah. Piped water. Drainage, we have terrible problems in Nairobi here when it rains. Our governor here runs an NGO anyway. So we shouldn't be having problems when it rains. And we have a governor who is apparently in control.
Yeah.
So ranking should be we have basic.
They should be making the basic
water,
things.
Drainage.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Simon, thank you very much for your contribution. We actually get it. You've raised some very good points that you're saying the governors should basically you should start from the basics, and if they don't start from the basics, then what else are we ranking them on? I have John on the line as well. John, good morning. You are in the Situation Room. Welcome. We are with me, Eric Latif, Ndu Okonjeri Thorne, and C.T. Muga. What do you think?
Morning, Eric, C.T. and Jerry. And
Ndu,
yeah.
Good
Thank
morning.
you very much, Eric.
Good morning.
Morning to you. Thank you. And I love the way you have interrogated Mutua. But in my thought, maybe you should cut him some slack. And because I happen to, though I live in Nairobi, I happen to make many trips in Machakos because it's just neighboring. And comparing Nairobi and Machakos, I think Machakos has done a little bit better. Even if you say maybe even in a class you might have somebody like who's clever among fools. I'm sorry to say that, but at least there's somebody who's above somebody. And looking at Mutua, I think he's done better. He's done better despite his some PR stunts that he might pull once.
Of which this might be one of them.
Yeah,
well, our contention is not his performance. We don't doubt that in any way, shape or form. What we were querying, which then makes it unfair on other governors, is them being actually graded, and it's a comparable report. Where was that coming from? That's what we were querying, not his performance. And it's not to say he's not the best performing. Perhaps he really is. Who knows? But what we were querying is how he came about this survey, why he participated in it, who commissioned it. And then it did get quite a lot of column inches and airspace on mainstream media. So that seems like a very well coordinated campaign. I'm in political communications. To me, I can see right through it. And I wanted to know who commissioned it, who was behind it. So I'm not saying he hasn't got a good track record in terms of development or he's not doing his job well. Nothing like that. With us, our query was, and also the commission or the Council of Governors was also quite taken aback by this report. So I think it's good we put this out there and ask the questions that we did, and we're not, we're not suggesting for 1 minute that he's not a performing governor. These are two different issues completely.
Yeah, sure, and I very understand that. That's why I said you really interrogated him very well. And looking at the Council of Governors rubbishing the report, I think the Council of Governors work together as buddies. Despite your performance, they work together as buddies because all these governors contribute to the pool so that they can come up with a council of governors. So I did not expect that is Wycliffe Oparanya and company to say that I think the report is credible, and I think one Babayao should pull up his socks. And by the way, talking about Babayao, you've called, according to a report, you've called the person, the governor who was ranked first. I expected you also to call Babayao and ask him why he was ranked last.
Yes, that's a good point.
Yeah, so I think that will be fair, so that we give it will be fair. But lastly,
you would probably not lend any credence to this report by responding. He'd probably say it's he's not going to respond because the report is nonsense. But in terms of the Council of Governors coming together and saying this, they do act as the spokesman for the council, for the governors. So somebody's got to speak up for them.
Yeah, and you expect them, of course, to protect the governors. So I expected that from them. But basically, I think ranking of these governors, even if it will be another organization doing the research, you'll find that you'll not find Mutua very far from the top. But I was surprised to see Makueni governor not really on top 2 or top 3. Was it top 3?
Yeah. Who would you think has actually performed or outperformed the rest?
Actually,
who would
John,
you think?
Makueni governor is in top 3. He's ranked 3rd in that report.
I expected him first because if you look at, I've looked at Makueni County and I've followed it very closely.
Yeah.
Because at the time that Kivutha Kibwana was the Minister for Environment, the time that he was out of Parliament, but he was the advisor to the former President Kibaki during the Grand Coalition. I think he's a sober guy, and what is done in Makueni is quite commendable. Because if you look at the hospital that is done,
have you been to Makueni yourself?
Yes, I've been in Makueni. I've met rounds.
With some of these governors, what they're finding is maybe their communications perhaps isn't as good as other governors. So their performance communication is outstripping, or some governors, their performance communication is outstripping others, whereas it's not a true reflection of the actual development that's happened in each county, which is what we've heard from other governors.
Very well. And finally, because if you talk about that, I've been in Makueni, been to Machakos, and my home county is Bungoma, but I've been there very many times, but it's pathetic. I've been to Kakamega. Kakamega is doing quite well. I've been to Uasin Gishu, quite some, like 12 or 15 counties, and I think Makueni stands top, and Kakamega and Machakos. Nairobi, I don't think it should be even a county.
John. So let me give you two of them, right?
Yes.
Your home county of Bungoma and the county of Uasin Gishu. Which one ranks above the other?
I'll go with Uasin Gishu.
Uasin Gishu.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking that is because the next person online is actually from Uasin Gishu, and this is Rono. Rono, good morning.
Good morning to you, gentlemen.
So you hear what John is saying. John has actually visited your home county, and he thinks that your home county is actually doing better than his home county. What do you think of your home county?
I agree with John, but I would want to address it from a slightly different perspective.
Yep.
When we talk of leadership, and we use popularity to rate leadership, those two words don't rhyme. Popularity and leadership don't go along. Leadership is about making difficult and popular decisions. And if we are going to rate you on the basis of how popular you are going to give in to quite a number of very popular but wrong
biases.
Absolutely.
Yes, and that's what you see. The person who can communicate more effectively ends up being more popular than the person who is doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Look at the issues John has just raised right now about Makueni and
Machakos.
And
Kakamega.
And Machakos.
Yes.
And Kakamega. Kakamega is all right. Oparanya has, I think, with a little bit of background, when you know that you can't compare the eloquence of Mutua and the stuttering of Oparanya.
Good Lord.
Oparanya has to communicate through action.
Yeah.
And he delivers on the ground. Mutua has to call on his professional background.
Communication.
And do a proper PR campaign.
Blitz, yes.
And paint himself angelic. But if we have to, I hope I don't sound too harsh to him.
No, you're not harsh at all.
You're being honest, yes.
Yes.
Ronald,
When you
what
look
criteria? So, what criteria do you think governors should be judged on? I'm not saying communication should be one of them. I'm looking at more like with development programs, basic amenities, water and electricity, and so on. What criteria do you think governors should be charged on?
Basically, competence.
Competence.
If someone can stand his ground on principle, then he can convince you to buy into what he is going to do.
That's still slightly vague.
So this is not.
You can rate him. You can rate him on that.
I think what we want to look at even further than that, right, is to say, okay, like if we go onto the ground in the county, what are things that we should see happening? Then we will be able to say, if to simplify it, then we would say, because we can see 1, 2, 3 happening, we can rate this governor on this percentage. If we see that the roads are in good condition and are being maintained regularly, if we see that there's proper health care by fact that we have good operating hospitals, for example, if we see that schools are in good condition, if we see that when you go into a county government office that services are being accorded, are those what we use to rate a well-performing governor, for example? Are those the things that we should use? Are those the benchmarks that we should put in place? What should we use to rate? What do we then use to rate our governors or any other leaders to say that they're actually doing their job and doing it well in terms of development?
Given what is obtaining on the ground right now, these guys have done exceptionally well. All of them, up to and including good old Babayao.
Yep.
Because these guys were elected on the basis of how popular they were, not on
what they were going to do. Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
If quite a number of your contributors, and if you look at what Honorable Grace Kiptui told you a few minutes earlier on, that there is a disconnect between what the leadership expects to deliver and what the general public
expects.
Looks up to from them.
So, Ronald, would you agree with me if we said the electorate doesn't know what's good for them?
It's worse than that.
It's worse than that.
Worse than that. It's worse than that. This is a fella who thinks that it's the responsibility of government to come up with a curriculum for his children in school. It is the responsibility of government to keep him safe, even when he is seeing a widow in the village who can't fend for themselves. And this widow has children.
Yeah.
What do you expect out of these children if they are not catered for by society?
Can I ask you a question, sir? Would you consider yourself to be part of this electorate that you speak of?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I've been voting. No, in the sense that I don't agree with what we get on offer most of the time. It's always you pick the least offensive
of those presented.
Right. So you don't feel we have good enough options.
But
yes.
When you talk about a yardstick by which to judge the governors, remember every county, the national government and county have performance contracts, isn't it? And they have performance contracts, yes, between the head of the county and whichever public officer, etc., etc. And they lay down very, very clearly what you should do. Why is it that we do not have a performance contract between the county officials, executive, and the people of the county that they represent, so that there is a clear indication of what they are judged by?
A contract is premised on a set of parameters.
It is.
How do you arrive on those parameters? How do you... When you talk of this amorphous thing called development...
No, it isn't amorphous.
No, it's very clear.
It's not amorphous. The development is not amorphous at all.
It's formulaic to a certain extent. You need, for a population of 2,000, you need a clinic, and it's very formulaic. It's been set out.
It's not amorphous at all. Sorry about that one. We sort of like jumped in your neck, but sorry.
In that case, we had to.
don't act defensive.
No, but I think it's necessary to note that for development, it's very clear what you need. When you have a certain number of people, there's certain needs that are very clear in terms of what needs to be established.
Development to you and me means completely something different.
No.
Development
No.
to that village.
No, no, it doesn't. Every person needs running water. Everybody needs a health facility. Everybody needs good road. Everybody needs lighting.
And
everybody
education.
needs an education. Everybody needs an opportunity.
This
Everyone.
is my opinion. This is my opinion, my good friend.
Okay.
You can't force me.
All right, so tell me how different we are.
What is development according to you?
Yes.
Development, according to me and you, is
according to you. According to you.
The water, the road, the functional infrastructure, security.
Yep.
Development to the border rider in town. That fella who looks at that border as his end to everything. Is the fella who will fuel that border for him, and he'll do anything to make sure that guy is happy, even push you off the road. So if I fuel 200 borders in this town today,
you are development.
All right. In terms of when they're looking for leadership. Right.
And that is the fellow who is informing public policy. Is the only one available to do to participate during public forums. You and me, we are on duty. When they call for those public participation forums, the educated elites do not go there.
And do you think they're best placed to be the ones participating more?
It's the fella whom you are calling, whom you are saying is not competent enough to make decisions for himself, who is informing policy for you.
Actually, this one, you'll forgive me, but can I possibly disagree with you very forcefully on this one?
Comfortably, yes.
You know, there's this notion, and Jerry is the ringleader and the headmistress for this particular perspective, that people who vote by and large don't really know what they want. And I keep telling her it is not true. The fact that someone plays the fool doesn't mean they're a fool. Politicians play the fool all the time. They become court jesters. They become humorists. That's not part of what they are. They're acting the part. I say that the person who votes, this so-called Mwananchi, knows exactly what they want. And what you see is how they have perceived and understood is the best way they can get what they want.
I think.
Then how come they always get the wrong end of the stick?
Absolutely. Rono has given us a very good example where there's people who vote in development, long-term projects that will affect a community long-term and they're sustainable. And then there's people who will vote because this guy gave them 200 bob to fuel their border. Now, both their vote counts equally, but you can see what's better for the economy, what's rather for development, which we've said is definitive. We know how development works, it's formulaic, and there's a way to get to development.
You're imagining two opposing arguments.
No. They're not opposing arguments. This
and they're saying the same thing.
This is exactly it exemplifies my point. Why should somebody who's paid 200 bob to fuel his motorbike have the same level of vote as somebody who understands development as making a choice based on something that will be long-term sustained and benefit the community at large, including the border guy? Clearly the border guy.
Let's take this argument as logical conclusion.
Either he doesn't know what's good for him, or he doesn't believe that the politician will actually achieve that development.
Since they're not equal, why don't you even ration oxygen for them and give them less? Because they actually don't need enough oxygen.
Or rather, they don't know how much they need.
Yes.
Rono, thank you very much for joining us this morning, Rono, and thank you for your contributions. Have a good day in Kericho, man.
I hope you can steer away from this trajectory we are taking of discussing politics in this show. You started off very well.
Oh no, Rono, we must discuss politics. It's the folder that
not in the way we are doing it now.
Right.
You started off tackling topical issues in a very open-minded way. Please let us have it that way. Thank you so much.
Asante sana, Rono. Asante sana for your contribution. And thank you for all the calls this morning. 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. We've been looking at the development record and the track record of all the 47 governors and what do you think about them? What do you think they've delivered or not? Well, out of this break, let's now discuss domestic issues, families, right? and matters of inheritance and all. Good morning, 23 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019 from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC, courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with The Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Find a home.
Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
Okay, so there's been an accident at Cabanas bus stop, and that means that we now have traffic mess.
Every day.
I keep saying that if Mombasa Road could speak, she would have very, very, very many things to say day after day. And here we have another accident on this road, so that means that we have a traffic pileup round about 5 minutes ago, and that's what the situation is. All right, so Cabanas inbound, there's a problem. It's all packed all the way back to the airport junction. So if you're further on ahead, this is what the situation is. Juja Road is clear, and that's spilling over into the Thika Superhighway, and so we have clear traffic, clear roads rather, just for now. Outer Ring Road, as from Nairobi River to roundabout, is basically bumper to bumper. Langata Road looks good coming round to the T-Mall roundabout and spilling over to the Nyayo Stadium roundabout, getting into the CBD. Not much of an issue. As you know, one part of Waiyaki Way has been opened up, and so that has decreased the traffic on that road roundabout now. Nothing too alarming. It is a Friday morning, so things could change rather quickly. But expect it, and you shall just be fine. Send us a message or give us a call, 0719 012 600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
You are in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. 94.4 Nairobi, 87.9 in Mombasa, 102.5 in Kisumu, 96.0 in Nakuru, 96.7 in Eldoret, 90.9 Nyeri, and 7.6 in Malindi. We are live streaming, as always, in the morning on Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. We're looking at the state of devolution in the country. Well, we're basically saying, what do you think? How do you think the county governments have performed so far? The current government and the previous government. Some of them are actually serving their second term, the governors. But we are saying now, there is a report that was released by a London-based organization that was dismissed by the Council of Governors. But we're saying now, you as the people of Kenya, as the voters who've been to one county and another, what kind of development and what kind of work have you seen being done by the county governors? That's the conversation we're having this morning. I'm opening up the phone line 0719 012 600. That's 0719 012 600. Good morning, Spice FM. All right. Yeah, please lower the volume of your radio, please. That's better. Good morning. Fine, thank you. How are you?
Morning. I'm okay.
Welcome to the Situation Room. This is Eric Latif. You're here with C.T. Muga and Jerry Thorne and Nduoko. What's your name?
My name is Kyoko. I'm calling from Nairobi.
Yes.
I want to speak about about what Mutua had just said. You know, you can't compare you can't compare the different counties due to the situation that the county governors found them in as they were entering
into power
in their offices. Yeah. Because you found I come from Makueni County. By the time Kivuda was taking over the county, it was really down. It was really down. I'm telling you, even the headquarters had no gorofas. Now people have seen the opportunities, they have invested there, and in Makueni, water is gold. In Makueni and in Kampani generally.
Yep.
I once visited Meru. My first time to visit Meru, I saw a stream which I was told it runs from January to December.
And you were shocked.
To me, it was shocking. While we know in our area, we know that water runs after the rains. Immediately after the rains.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, is when we could see water running, service running. But here is water which I'm being told it is only one foot deep, and it has been running that from January to December. Yeah, to them they don't need to put dams. So this essential need in different counties.
Yeah.
They are different. You will find in Kiambu County, they have water. Kiambu, they are supplying water to Nairobi County. So when we are getting these people out there performing, we should see the background whereby they have where they have brought their county from to where they are. So generally, I would say every governor has performed to his best regarding to the resources that he has been availed with. Yeah.
Okay, I understand every country would have different needs and would be coming from a different place in terms of maybe was very underdeveloped, so it might not give you a clear indication to set parameters just flatly.
True.
So how do you suggest we evaluate the performance of the governors? According to their pledges and promises, and whether they've lived up to those.
No.
And the needs of the people.
When you measure them by their pledges.
As to whether they've lived up to them, not just the pledge itself. Whether they've lived up to it. Yeah.
What I may say about that, about gauging them, first of all, there are the essential things that a county, that the local mwananchi in every county considered to be very, very essential. If he has in his scorecard, he or she has proved that he has a percentage of that need has been catered for. I think that we should have a scorecard whereby whereby we know that a certain county required, let's say, water. Another one required health. We should first of all get to know what is much needed. In Nairobi, like you see, the mess is about garbage and everything. If you go to other counties, even garbage, they wonder why we talk about garbage in Nairobi. Because to them,
their needs are completely different.
The setup is totally different. So every county has to have a scorecard. Now, with that scorecard is what we should get the development and every to show that this county is performing, this county is not performing. When they are given money, we should know that this money is given. They are given this much money because their needs are this and this and that. And now that is what we should get them, not talking generally. Let's say health.
Yeah.
Health in every county is a need. But there are other basic things like school. If you go to these counties which just came up during the evolution, there are counties like Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, which we know they have been there, and at least they have been big municipalities. But these counties which were districts, and then they were turned to counties. You find even their headquarters it doesn't have even a second floor.
Yeah,
The headquarters,
they had to
they
expand,
don't
construct a
even
new
have-
headquarters.
They don't even have a palace for their you know,
A palace for their governor.
for the governor. So in such situations, you will find that their basic need, the Mwananchi down there,
Yeah.
even he doesn't know that the government is supposed to do some things. In our county, rather than now, vile tulijua through siasa and everything, we thought it was ours to go and get water for ourselves. You know, it is that thirsty. You know, and now, like me, I was brought up in the village setup, and I'm bringing up my kids in Nairobi.
Yep.
So I just compare what I was going through back then, barefooted, going to school. Here, they can't even walk without shoes in the house.
Even in the house.
In the house, they're complaining. You know, the different situations.
Yeah.
As we used to get to go to the river to get mud, for molding, to get mud. You know, for molding. Then they are using this plastic. I think I bought something from the supermarket. I was wondering if these two different situations, and we expect to be get from the same. Though in our times we used to pass compared to Nairobi. Makueni used to perform best in school, even at that situation.
So clearly, Kioko, devolution has brought very many things, especially if you look at.
I'm telling you, if you come to our area,
different perspectives for different people.
They'll tell you we have the best. We have the best. Yet when you compare with the knowledge that we have, you will find even if they are performing, there are some things they are not doing up to the standard. They are up to the expectation of what they are getting.
Thank you for joining us this morning,
But
Kioko.
one thing I know is that Mutua has done, every governor has done his part, because the Mwananchi is the one who can gauge.
He's the one who's going to
his
gauge.
leader, what he has done here. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kioko from Nairobi and Makueni. Have a good one. From Kisumu, Bet, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
So, yes, welcome to the situation. What do you think?
Thank you. So I'm glad I'm part of this discussion. And just to mention, I had Dr. Alfred Mutua online. And just to speak with total frankness, I would say I concur with him. I can rate Machakos as one of the top performing counties. Yeah.
What are you basing this on? What's your yardstick?
Yeah. So when devolution came in, it came up with the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, which are 17 in number, and that is a fair and objective parameters we can use to measure the performance of these governors. So you mentioned the clean water and sanitation, that is SDG call number 6, and then affordable clean energy, that is number 7. You mentioned also good health, whereby you were saying within 7 minutes there's an ambulance that comes to your reach. So I concur with him. In terms of performance, Mutua is done well.
Interesting, because of course he speaks very well. He's very convincing and influencing. But we've had people from his county actually call in and say there was no water, and they were quite specific about that. So if this is one of the indicators of development under the development goals, the sustainable development goals, does that not worry you about what he's saying and whether it's true or not? Because we then had somebody call in and say there was no water, somebody had to sink a borehole. Did you hear that call?
We've lost him.
We've lost him, okay. But interesting one there.
Yep. So the number we are opening up the phone line 0719 012 0719 012 It's about the performance of our county governments, the governors themselves and the county governments, and what it has done, whether devolution has actually worked on the ground, and what you think about this. And actually, one of the callers was saying, let's come up with some parameters. What parameters would we use?
What indicators?
As indicators of good performance.
Good performance.
But also that whole issue of saying, well, let's not compare all of them from the same level. Let's say from the people of a certain county, these are what our pressing needs, and maybe the government has actually addressed those pressing needs, or it's made specific strides or significant strides towards addressing our basic
I think also development begs a basic. They're basic things that have to be, regardless of where you are, or regardless of what level you began at, and that is just climbing up the ladder. There's certain things that you must have your bottom rung, and this bottom rung is actually what has been specified. If we look at the world over, and these are the things that we're looking at: basic running water, good roads, proper infrastructure, etc., on those basics. And I don't think that we can now judge on if we have said that you're performing. For example, I wouldn't expect, if we look at Machakos, for example, as an example, I wouldn't expect that these are then the benchmarks that we use to judge them again in the next 5 years, because we would expect that these goals that they have achieved would then be sustainable over time. We would not then use those to judge them. We would now then look at secondary development factors in another period to say, all right, since you've achieved 1, 2, 3, we then expect you to be performing on 4, 5, 6 in the next. So we cannot continually judge on the same things or continue to use those benchmarks in the next period or in the next cycle of development that we hope to be existing within. So these things continue to change over time. Once you've achieved one level, we expect that we get to the next.
What's interesting is that he brings up the fact that each county would be at different stages of development, and so we should take that into account when measuring the performance of the governor. I think this factor is mitigated by the fact that counties get a bit more money, given the formula for resource allocation takes into account the fact that you are underdeveloped, or that you need to build more infrastructure in order to deliver services, or perhaps the fact that you were previously marginalized, as they say. So I think that then brings everybody to par, and you're playing.
Actually, the Commission on Revenue Allocation have done a sterling job with this. I mean, it isn't heralded, it isn't spoken about. But if you understand their mandate and you understand how they've sought to actually fulfill this mandate, they've done a sterling job.
Equitable distribution.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That they have.
So I think that puts everybody on par with regards to, some counties were underdeveloped.
Indeed it does,
so
but you say, when it comes to looking at projects that have been completed, so if you say a certain county, let's say, did not have, it only had one major hospital, right? So it's received the funds to build another, to improve its healthcare. So the yardstick here is how much improvement in terms of healthcare do we have versus another county, which had, like Nairobi County, which had X number of health facilities, and it did not therefore receive funds for the continuity of health facilities. But what have you done? In Nairobi, if we talk about healthcare, it will not be the same as talking about healthcare in Lamu. Healthcare in Lamu would be actual construction of infrastructure,
of which they're given money for, so it equalizes everybody.
Yes, of which they're given
extra money for.
So the yardstick there is, have you actually utilized that money to build the infrastructure?
Utilize in Nairobi, the yardstick remains the same for everybody, because the fund has equalized, so it's a level playing field. That's the idea.
It's equitable.
It's equitable, which then equalizes, so to speak, when it comes to comparing performance.
And the end product that is anticipated.
It's like in golf and having, a handicap.
And in this case, what would be, like, if you want to compare, for example, like Nairobi and Lamu, in Nairobi you would not be looking at necessarily constructing new, but you'd be able to look at maintaining and improving the services of that which is already in existence. Exactly. And that marks up to development as well. Are you able to maintain or improve upon that which you have that is already in existence? And that must be taken into consideration as well.
And there are parts of Nairobi that are not dissimilar to some of these rural settings that we speak of.
Indeed, yes.
And so they would need that additional. They don't have roads, they don't have certain amenities.
So they need other things to buffer the situation.
They would need.
Yes.
And when you talk about the yardstick, it's from these particular places that you would then judge. They didn't have a market. They didn't have a hospital.
Now they do.
And it's in Nairobi. Yes. You're not talking about the place of Nairobi that have more of these things than they know what to do with. No. You talk about those areas that don't.
That don't have.
And this is what devolution was supposed to do. That's why I brought in the issue of a performance contract. Remember, when you actually present yourself as a candidate, you are in effect performance contracting yourself.
Yes.
When you utter all those things that people consider spurious and don't mean anything, you
You're saying,
are
judge me
you're-
on this.
Yes,
thing.
you're stating the terms of your contract. But I was saying you should take it a step further and actually write it down.
Yeah,
And say,
write it down and
judges,
sign.
after year 1, we're saying we'll have done A, B, C, D. When we get to year 2 and we start talking to you, take us on whether we did what we said we were going to do in year 1
Or not.
Yes, now you can then judge, and it isn't uniform, but it exists because it meets the need of that particular county.
There you have it.
Yes.
Indeed, and it's very important for people to actually keep putting leaders to account, because this is it. If we expect them to decide what they want to bring to us as development, and without us saying this is what we need as development, or agreeing that you came during the campaign period and said this is what I'm going to do if you elect me, then I've elected you. It has to be very clear. I've elected you because of what you came and told me you were going to do.
Yes.
And I will judge you because of what you told me you were going to do, and whether you've done it or not. And this is what we've been discussing this morning. Our telephone number 0719 012 600. It's coming up to 9 o'clock. We'll continue this conversation, of course, on our social media handles, Spice FM KE, where we are live streaming. Also on Twitter, Spice FM KE. Our telephone 0719 012 600 once again. And also we are streaming on our website, www.spicefm.co.ke. Coming up in the next hour, let's talk about inheritance, succession, and families. Good morning. This is the Situation Room.
24/7 around the world,
Yes, and so we're coming to the top of the hour, and that's what you'll be discussing, right? The issue of succession, the issue of what comes next.
Spice up your life.
All right, not much has changed. We still have issues on Thika Road as well as Waiaki Way. Kangunda Road today is actually quite okay. Heading in towards the CBD, as everybody is, definitely is going to cause some traffic. The situation on Mombasa Road has been compounded by the accident that we saw a few minutes ago. Hopefully that will clear up as we get people on their way. Yes, it is a Friday, and we're bound to see some of these things increase as we go along. For now, everybody is moving along smoothly, unless for the cases that we've talked about, specifically on Thika Road heading in towards the Globe roundabout. However, apart from that, everything not so bad. If you see anything that we need to know about, do give us a call. Send us a message, and for the time that we're here, we'll try and keep you moving. 0719 012 600.
This is the Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, lawyer, political strategist, an insider in the corridors of power, ready to take on any side of the debate with her signature eloquence and grit. C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room. The
Kenya's
only way
biggest
to start
conversation
your
on
day.
Facebook, Spice FM KE, on YouTube, Spice FM KE, www.spicefm.co.ke. Well, our frequencies around the country. In Malindi, we are on 97.6. In Eldoret, we are on 96.7. In Nyeri, 90.9. In Nakuru, 96.0. 102.5 in Kisumu, 87.9 in Mombasa, 94.4 in Nairobi. We're having big conversations this morning.
Looking at situations of succession, and specifically for prominent leaders in this country, splashed in the media over recent time, we've seen issues of, prominent leader having passed away and having amassed wealth over his time, while his or her time when they've been alive. Interestingly enough, we've seen it in most cases having to do with men and their families. When they pass away, we then have these succession battles that take place. Most recently, we saw, even just as late as yesterday, we saw a case where a young woman passed away and she was not able to meet her cancer bill, the bills from the hospital, and she did pass away. They said in abject poverty, she passed away in squalor. And we're looking at situations where the family had immense resources in terms of what would have been able to take care of this particular case. We have prominent people in positions of government, a lot of times in positions of leadership, then who are not able to manage. I don't know if we're looking at ability, not able to manage the resources that they have on a family level. Does this then speak of how we are asking them to manage resources on a national level? Because we see the home situation having been thrown into situations of chaos, absolute chaos, where we have a lot of infighting, people are in court, squabbling back and forth. We don't, what the will says or what it doesn't say is not able to be controlled by the members of the family, and we have people being thrown into serious cases of confusion totally. So now we're looking at it on a micro level as concerns the family unit. When we look at it on a macro level, having concerned the country, what are we then looking at? Not able to handle resources, not able to handle management, not able to handle family on a management level. These are the same individuals mostly that are handling things for us on a national level. These are issues that we must look at. It's not a good situation that we see playing out, and this is the same situation that we see playing out on a national level, and definitely it cannot be so.
This is a barometer that Jerry were talking about for choosing a leader. Family life. That's one of them.
Can you handle your family life?
If you can't handle your
coming
family,
into leading the public?
Why should you handle us?
It's interesting. This again comes to Jerryism, a social construct. Yes, it is, because what is the yardstick that determines that someone can actually look after a larger group of people? Because that's what a community is, that's what a nation is, that's what a ward is, that's what a constituency is.
Well, I think a good indicator is that when they die, they don't leave their family in turmoil and fighting over property to the point where, the courts have to put a freeze on it and you can't afford to get medical treatment. Well, they get their house in order. No, you have your house in order before you die. You not necessarily write a will, or I would suggest that, but you have your affairs in order before you die.
We all seem to have our houses in order before we die. Well, many of them, before you die, because you're the head of the family, you're the one man who's running the show. The others are not actually
okay. House in order, yardstick, or what? When you say someone has his house in order,
there are no squabbles.
Because you don't see them.
You
don't hear of them.
They're not public squabbles.
Children have gone
that you're very definitive and deliberate about where you want your money to go. That way it's not being fought over, and you understand the law. And, if you're wealthy, you can afford a lawyer to advise you, put your money in trust for your children, whatever it is, have your house in order. Now, if you can't do that, what are you doing running public life? What are you doing running a county, for instance, or being a minister, if you can't have your own house in order? That's where the leadership aspect came in. But I would, I have a suspicion that with succession, it's quite different. There's different dynamics that come into it. You've heard of people being afraid to write wills because they're scared their spouse or children would kill them. There is that.
But they end up dying anyway.
They do, but not before your time. You don't want to die.
Well, when is your time?
When you're killed, you think? No.
No.
You naturally.
Yes.
No.
Yes. When is?
No.
You see,
your time is when you go.
Yes. Broaden this argument. When a young child dies, was it their time to go? Just look at death across the board.
What we're discussing
you do not want to
today
influence
is
when you die.
CT, what we're discussing today is succession, and there is a serious problem, I think, with prominent Kikuyu families specifically are the ones who keep cropping up. And I say this because it's not just to do with money. It's clearly there's some cultural or an element of taboo or tradition within the Kikuyu families, because you have very wealthy Asian families and you don't hear of these squabbles.
It's actually capitalism.
Whereas, no, you don't hear. You have Asian families and they have very good succession plans. Whether it's the family business, whether it's the wealth, they have very good succession plans.
And everybody's aware.
You come into some Kikuyu families. I mean, you have, for instance, the Koinange family. They've been, is it 40 years going on?
In court.
It's been in court.
In court
and then now Jenga Karuma's family, you had JM Karaoke's family. It's these prominent Kikuyu families, and they can't seem to come to an understanding to the point, it's a lose-lose situation for everybody, because people don't even have access to the funds or the land to enjoy, which is, I'm sure, what, the father or the patriarch envisaged that his family would enjoy all these things. But
on his terms, probably.
Yeah, exactly, on his terms.
And those terms expire when you die, don't they?
I think it's a succession planning in Kenya or in Kenyan families is taboo. It's scary. It's not done.
And even when it's done, like Njenga Karume had done it.
He had written a will.
Well, he had written a will very clearly putting his wealth under trust, and the trust is supposed to manage it, and the beneficiaries are very clear. But well, we have a case in court. We've seen a granddaughter who passed away because she was not basically benefiting from what the trust should be doing to cater for her medical bills. But like you're saying, Jerry, yes, it's very predominant in the Kikuyu.
It is. It's very prevalent. Yeah.
But if you look at it actually from culturally, many of our communities had a proper succession. It was very clear. In fact, it was clear the inheritance. You are my sons. You're gonna inherit. And at this point, it's very clear. You are gonna. The lastborn is the one closer to the home. The firstborn gets. It was very clear across all communities. But now this is a fairly new thing where you are acquiring wealth as a person, and you clearly do not want your family to know what wealth you are acquiring or where your wealth is.
Remember,
in fact, these days the issue is we saw a case in court. A woman had actually actually she confessed she had hired someone to go and kill her husband, and unfortunately the people that she had hired happened to be undercover cops. So the cops went and abducted the man and took him to a police station and told him, look, this is a script that we're playing, all right? So play along. So call your wife. And he calls the wife, and the wife is like, tell me where the title deeds are. Tell me where the property is, please, before they kill you. Please just tell me so we're not left suffering. And he's there wondering, my God, you've actually planned all this just so that I can tell you where my title deeds are. But the question is, why do we hide the title deeds?
Not only that, how do you get to that point? You're talking about then that a relationship that is based on adversity.
Yes.
And has been. So you're saying that we need to understand what is it about relationships that turn, because you don't marry someone out of adversity, it's out of love. At what point does adversity take center stage in the relationship? Because this is adversity, the worst possible kind. Because when someone wants you dead, the thing about death is its finality. No reverse.
It happens once. Huh?
Yes, that's it. That's it.
They want you gone.
Yes, you're gone. Yes. Why? How does it get to that point?
I think, money is too tight to mention, but money does, it does draw, put wedges, and you have relationships that are brilliant, but the money aspect is isolated from the relationship, so that this is my money. Because also sometimes maybe it's a second marriage, there's different dynamics. So there's money to go to my first children, or maybe, you're the third wife and so on. And also the reason why people are very afraid now to include their spouses and families, because divorce is a lot more easier than it previously was. Now women can inherit, unlike before. So dynamics or the law, things are also changing. So you're finding men are a lot more cautious. And then, of course, there's these rumors that wives are killing for money. And, where there's smoke, there's fire. So maybe people are a bit wary when it comes to putting their house in order, so to speak.
Openly in order.
Openly in order. But there's definitely something wrong with the succession of a lot of wealthy Kenyans. It's not being done right. People are left in turmoil. There's so many court cases. The people who are benefiting, lawyers. Lawyers are enjoying this. They're exploiting it. They're delaying court processes and so on, and minting and making a hell of a lot of money out of this. Because I keep looking at Indian communities and you don't see this. And you're talking of, proper tycoons. You're talking of serious, family-owned businesses. They just grow from generation to generation. With us, with and non-Asian...
It even goes beyond just immediate family. It goes into cousins. So you find these two brothers who are running this, they started this company together. Their children come in and they start running the company. In fact, now the cousins are the ones who are running company. And it's still successful, and there's no turmoil.
I think also African fathers know they haven't raised their children to be responsible enough. So they're actually scared to pass on that mantle. They're scared to give them the money. They don't trust them because they know how they've raised them. Maybe they haven't been part of their lives. Maybe they've, just thrown money at them as a way of raising them, as opposed to spending time with them and instilling certain values, because they are afraid of giving them their money. or their businesses to run.
Maybe it even goes beyond that, because if you look, just take basic examples of, a typical Kenyan family and what you're thinking of. You're running a business. Somebody will tell you, I cannot give biashara to my family. I cannot employ my family. I cannot give biashara. So you're running a construction company, and you know that your cousin runs a construction transport business. You will not give that biashara to your cousin who has trucks to bring in cement and sand and ballast to your construction. You'd rather bring in somebody else.
Really?
Why? I don't trust. That's what happens. Then you just see them. I just don't trust. I don't want to mix family and business. I don't want to. Whereas in the Asian community,
what is
that's
the
exactly the
experience
opposite.
that brings about this particular
disappointment?
Yeah, but you see, people who don't come from those communities see it otherwise. They see a community that actually colludes very well when it comes to the process of making money. That's what they see. And you're saying that is not necessarily the case. So which is it? Because if you talk of cronyism, for instance, cronyism is what you're saying doesn't exist, where I come together with people, not necessarily who think like me, maybe come from my community, but think like me and do business together. Those of us who don't come from these communities, or who don't come from the community of central Kenya, for instance, we believe that people from Murang'a perfected this. Hence the Rwadia groups, hence Equity Bank as we now know it.
They do come together, and that was the genesis of SACCOs.
They
and
do.
People like
Rwadia group
Equity
does not have close family members.
But in terms, I think what it is, if you look at the dynamics psychologically of family members, there's usually one.
Not cousin.
If you look at the dynamics, and this is where maybe the mistrust comes from, if you look at the dynamics of the family members, there's usually one guy who's really made it.
Yeah.
And then what tends to happen is people are looking to get what they can out of him, and he becomes aware of this and starts to avoid family generally when it comes to business dealings. I think that
he's
tends
going to be milked.
Those tends to that tends to be the dynamics. There's also this notion in terms of succession planning and inheritance and passing money on to your kids. If a man has struggled, he wants his child to struggle, to go through the same struggle, of which I don't necessarily agree with. If I have struggled, I want my generations to come to enjoy, so that they can go into the creative arts and actually do what their mind wants them to do and not have to think about money. I want to afford them that luxury, that privilege. That is why I want to make money and pass it on. But there's this notion, and this is why you find a lot of very wealthy parents, let's say, Karen is a classic example of this, very wealthy parents, and you have kids in their late 40s living with their parents, hoping for their parents to die. And their parents, no, this is seriously the case.
Yeah.
And their parents are being very healthy, eating guashe and doma in the morning, very healthy. They're not going anywhere.
They
and these
refuse
kids
to die.
But these kids are so frustrated. They're in the bar every day that there's a problem with alcoholism and Karen.
So they end up
because of
dying.
this very reason. They end up dying. Now, what I'm thinking is, why doesn't the parent just give them the inheritance while they're alive?
So that they can die earlier.
No, so they can start to enjoy their life.
Yes,
for crying out loud.
start living your
Because you
life.
haven't brought up this child to work hard. He's waiting for
He's
his
waiting for
inheritance.
his inheritance.
And this is the thing, the paradox. Because of this, the father knows this and will not give them the money. All very messy.
And so we're bringing this now into leadership as well, and saying we have seen it in public figures, we've seen it in leaders, and leaders who have not been able to actually organize or put their houses in order, and then they're seeking positions of leadership. If you cannot put your house in order, then why should you put a country? Why should you be expected to put a county, country, constituency in order?
Even a constituency,
Do you
even a ward.
Do you deserve to get to that point? Then how do you judge them then?
The interesting thing with this one, Eric, is that it's in retrospect that you realize this guy didn't have his affairs in order because he's already been in leadership, and you wonder, how did he run that ministry if he couldn't run his home? Because usually by the time they're dying, they've already been in the ministry. They're not vying, at the age of 90 or what have you.
Indeed.
So sadly, it's in retrospect. So it's not exactly an indicator that we can use, because you only find out after they die.
Even the exposure that they had not had their houses in order will
only
still
comes
come later.
after.
But look at how it's done in a country like the US, for example. The minute you put yourself on a public platform and you say that you want to run for a particular office, you are scrutinized to the letter. They go and they find out where you went to primary school, who your friends were, do you have any back taxes,
Did you
do you have
smoke
any
weed
student
at
loans, did you
16?
smoke, were you arrested at any point in time, how many wives, or if you were a man, how many wives did you marry,
They
were
talk to
you
your
gay? They
ex-girlfriends
go to
and
the very
boyfriends.
detail. Exactly. They go and they talk. Do you have any scandals, any skeletons in your closet? All of those things are unearthed, and they present you skeletons and everything back to the people. They chew you up, throw you out, and say, well, there's what you have. Do you still want to put this person in a position of public office? And then you make the decision based on that. Are we at a place in this country, or even other countries on the continent, where we seem to have this problem of succession? Are we doing that? We're definitely not doing that. Are we putting these people to public scrutiny? We aren't. And so by the time any skeletons come out of the closet, it's really definitely too late because this individual is gone. And then if we trace it back, we're able to see that actually they didn't run it in the way they should have run it.
But Jerry, do you really or do? Yes,
or
yes,
Jerry
do.
or
yes, do, yes. Do and Jerry. Do you really think the electorate care whether you're on your 10th wife?
Or not?
No, but they should.
They should care,
but
because
they
that is
don't know better.
This is an indicator of how you then be able to run.
Let's actually ask. Let's
on
ask,
a
let's
macro
ask this.
level.
Let's ask the
Absolutely.
electorate this: should it matter? Should it matter how you run your family? If you run your family well, is it an indicator that you are going to be able to run the country well? If you don't run
Even
your
not
family
the country,
well,
your ward,
your
a
ward,
ward, going to a constituency,
your position
then
of
going
leadership,
to a county, then going to the nation.
if you run it well, is it an indication that you actually are a good manager?
Because
if
the
you're
habits
if you're
that
a
you
bad
have.
home manager, is it an indication that you're a bad leader?
The
So should we
habits
be
that you have
doing
on a
some
micro
this
level.
this scrutiny at that level? 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. I'm sure people are also commenting on Facebook while we are live streaming Spice FM KE, and also on Twitter Spice FM KE. You're saying that we shouldn't be looking at this?
No,
Or you're saying whether we it shouldn't matter?
I'm saying it doesn't seem to matter to the electorate.
Should it?
It should.
So the electorate doesn't know.
No,
Any
the
better.
electorate.
Thank
no. When you say should, you are proposing
That it should.
You're
It is right.
postulating.
Yes.
And I was
But it
stating
doesn't.
what is.
Because this, yes.
Two different things, two different discussions.
Why-
And
what-
you are
what-
forcibly merging them into one.
No,
But
no,
carry
no,
on.
no, no, no,
Merge
no,
them.
no.
Why do we want to be private?
You said, CT, you said to me it should matter.
It should.
But it doesn't matter.
No, it
because the
appears
electorate
not to matter.
Yes, because the electorate doesn't know any better.
No, they
don't
do.
know that it should.
The electorate is not. The electorate believes that your private
Jerry,
life, for
Jerry,
example,
on which
should
side-
not be an indicator of
Are
how you would
are
run
part of the
public
electorate?
office. Do you see the
yes?
The
Jerry, are you part
electorate.
of the electorate? So there's a section of the electorate that knows and another that doesn't.
Absolutely.
No, she belongs to the part that supposedly.
So why not
we've
why
had
not
this
that
big,
teach,
very massive,
teach everybody else?
When matters of morality, issues of second and third marriages at the same time have come into question. But the participation is often blamed on the men because the ones who are polygamous. Do they marry these women by force?
No, I'm assuming
But
it's a
polygamy isn't
mutual
necessarily
benefit.
immoral.
It's
Oh,
not
no, no, no,
immoral.
no.
We talked
No,
about
no,
that already.
No. We didn't conclude on that issue. we never conclude on these issues. We always leave them for further discussion. Why am I bringing this up? The issues you talk of and the differences, if you look at many of these families, there was more than one wife.
Right.
There was more than one
But the
family,
general
so to speak.
acceptance of polygamy in Kenya makes it not immoral. It's not shunned. You won't be ostracized for having more than one wife. It's unspoken. I think it's legal now in terms of legislation
it's
passed
okay.
to allow you to have another wife. But even before that, it was an unspoken convention. It was okay to have a second wife. It wasn't frowned upon.
You
It
know,
was
while
absolutely
you know,
fine.
while
It was
acceptable.
allowed.
Let me tell you
It was
something
acceptable.
Directly and
interesting that,
expressly allowed.
Something interesting that I was listening on BBC this morning. You know what Australia have gone and done? They've legislated it to have a crime outside your marriage.
To have a crime.
Right.
It's a crime. If you have any sexual
Infidelity.
activity outside your marriage,
It's
is
a crime.
It's now criminalized.
Wow, we would have half the population in jail.
No, I am waiting for the exodus.
Let's see. The other way around this time from
Yes.
Australia.
I'm waiting for people to leave Australia.
Good morning, Yegon.
Good morning.
How are
Good
you?
morning, Egon.
I'm very fine. Though today I must thank Spice FM for giving that website that so that we can stream.
Yes, it's always there,
Yes.
Yegon.
There you go.
Yes, it has helped me so much.
Kabisa.
Because hapa Wajir hakuna FM mode.
Hey, now you are in Wajir.
Sai niko Wajir, I'm back to work.
Okay.
So I want to talk about succession. I think how we lead our families should be a factor when electing a leader.
Oh, absolutely.
And we had said that sometimes when Jerry was trying to tell us what let us have a recipe for a good leader. But now to electorate, it doesn't matter. Because we might be having, and unless the person of interest and explain this or put in public his wealth, but the inner lifestyle, it's hard to know. For example, let's have for example an MP.
Mm-hmm.
An MP covers a constituency and maybe he comes from a certain area. But in a certain ward, no one knows about his or her own lifestyle. It's just because these politicians normally comes to limelight towards the end of election time. So it's hard for the electors to scrutinize. About the, there were a topic about inheritance and succession in the family.
Yep.
I think mostly in African perspective, most of the barons fear in writing a will because they believe that when you write a will, now you are near to die.
You're calling your own death.
You are calling your own death.
It's a taboo.
That's why, that's why they used to hold on. Even others died without giving out a will.
Yeah.
But a will is a good thing for your family to live well after your demise.
Yeah.
Even if you don't, even at your old age, you know you are unable to control your wealth.
Yep.
And above 70, you are under care of your children.
Yeah.
So when you give them your inheritance, maybe business or land, so that they can empower themselves, these people will be able to take
help
care
you
of,
better.
to help you better. But now in African style, even your father will tell you no. This land, the land which I have, like now, for instance, most of our families, our fathers will tell us, this land I was given by my father. So mimi sina yangu ya kukuba. You see? Wait until the day that I will give you, I will buy mine and give you. But this one belongs to me. I was given by my father. And there is no way you will challenge in the court because the land still in the name of his father. The title deed still is his father. So you have nothing.
And yet there are others who will now tell you then go and look for your own.
Yes, go and look for your. And remember, you are for some now. We in Nandi tribe we have 8 sets.
Yes.
Our fathers now are people who were born around 1957 to 1964. These people were given their share by our grandfathers at the age of 19. Now we are 33. They have not given us ours.
So many years after you're 19.
Yes, they will tell you, I took you to school. In fact, like now our father could tell us that the share that I will give you depends on the level of your education. If you got past the Form 4, forget about the land because you wasted your time.
Yeah.
So the share is like now it belongs to the one whom he or she was not so sharp. That's he can tell you now this one has a rightful to ask me. But you guys, I took you to school, you failed.
So bringing the topic back to the base is we should care how somebody is managing his family or their family in order for as we consider them for a position of leadership.
I think grooming your family.
All right.
Yeah, I mean
setting up.
How
you groom this?
You groom them for taking up the leadership role also as they grow up.
As they grow up, for example, the community work, the church.
Yes.
The even managing a cattle, being a member of a cattle. Yes, that is a CV in experience.
Indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, my brother. Enjoy Wajir.
Thank you.
Is there traffic?
Camels.
In Wajir.
No traffic.
Just give us a traffic update from Wajir. No traffic this morning.
Okay, thanks, Yagun. We'll catch you on Monday.
I think one thing that we have shunned when looking at public office is the fact that these individuals are going into public office. And there's some things that must be taken into consideration. How you manage yourself will definitely spill over into how you manage an office in public life. And these guys, for once, I would say that the US hasn't gotten it wrong. For once, they've not gotten it wrong in the way in which they go about this, because you're going the responsibility of a certain group of people. If we're looking at it in Kenya, whether at ward level, whether at constituency level, whether at county level, whether at national level, you are serving the public. Everything about you, in terms of how you do things, spills over into your home work life. Will marry at some point. So for us to be able to know who you are in entirety, if we can't know everything, we must know then how you manage or handle things. Now, when we've looked at we only get to see in Kenya or other African countries, we only get to see these things at the end. What we are saying is that we need to even learn, we need to now embrace the culture of having people to understand that, look, you are going into public office. You cannot remain a private individual, even at that level. It becomes public for us then to know how are you leading, how are you guiding us. If we're able to trace back and see how you handle things on a family level, then clearly we'll see those indicators shining through in how you handle the public office. And it's clear that perhaps it's time for us to embrace really looking into an individual before we put them into these positions. And we who hold the vote should, if we say we have a lobbying culture, these are some of the things we should begin to lobby towards.
That our leaders are more open about their private lives.
Absolutely, because they're leading us in a public sphere.
But then again, I think the idea of integrity or morals and ethics, it's quite subjective. So we can't draw from America necessarily, because here, as we said, having 2 or 3 wives is considered okay. And the reason in the US, I think you would find there would be some resistance to somebody who's deemed to not be appropriate is because standards have already been set and they're quite aligned in terms of whether it's through the media or whatever. Everybody's quite homogenous. They agree on quite a few fundamentals. So monogamy or, cheating is actually bad, as in infidelity and so on.
And for them, divorce isn't an issue here, it would be.
Whereas here, I think we're not as...
liberal.
We're not as liberal. Well, we're liberal with certain things. You can have 3 wives, so or you can have up to 4. Well, it doesn't stop you from having 5. Does it?
Actually, having a single wife is more liberal.
Well, it depends.
Being in a polygamous marriage is what is called conservative and normal.
But even in the U.S., if you're a Mormon or you belong to some
there's that, of course, Church of the Latter-day Saints.
Yes, people have more than one wife.
But my point is, when it comes to scrutinizing people's public lives and then juxtaposing that against their ability for leadership, what parameters or what indicators, what measures are we using when society itself here in Kenya hasn't agreed on what's wrong and what's right, when we have different cultures that accept different things, from wife inheritance through to the idea of killing people for money? I'm not saying there's any culture that accepts that, but to some cultures that doesn't weigh as heavily as it does to others. Do you see what I mean? So we're not homogenous in that sense, in the way America is. So if we as society haven't decided what our values are, what we believe in, how can we then start judging individuals? In the States, it's based on, public perception, and there will be backlash from the public if they decide they don't like something. Here, there'll be some people who are accepting. Some people see nothing wrong with, killing somebody and staying as governor. It's neither here nor there here. It's not decided. So I don't think we can start to adopt those. I mean, it makes a lot of sense that we should look at people's personal lives before deciding whether they can come into leadership. But given that we ourselves as the electorate don't know what we should be doing, we don't have a value system, we don't have standards that are aligned or even a national identity.
Yeah.
So,
my mind has gone about something that happened in China some years ago when the state declared that families were allowed to have just one child.
Yeah.
And it's a male-centric society. Girl children were being killed.
They're being thrown from buildings. Yeah,
exactly. So, yes, well, that is a terrible example of a community that has a certain unified position on an issue. But listen, this yardstick we speak of, I'm going back to the contract that I spoke of. Okay, there are certain things which, if we go into, will complicate the matter so much, we actually won't be able to move forward. It is simple. Whether it's a ward, what it requires, it's not that difficult to know. It's basic. And we also have a very structured society. Within that ward, you have a chief. It's there. There's a leadership structure. Even it's there.
Chairman of the cattle dip, chairman of the school BOG.
It is there. You're speaking to one.
Yeah, school BOG or cattle dip.
BOG chairman.
Okay, BOG
I'm yet to ascend to that higher position of cattle dip chairman, but I'm still at the level of chairman of BOG of a local school.
And you had a point you were making.
My point is this: a contract that is verifiable. I will do this. Hold me accountable for this by this time. This by this time. This by. It's not complicated.
So your personal life just actually doesn't come into any of this
because
if you're holding a position of public office.
If you want something which works, you cannot leave it to someone's goodwill. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And remember earlier on we were discussing what it is that happens to people when they are sent to these positions. He may look after his family well, he may do this. Then he comes into what he calls money and influence and power and a position of prestige, and all that goes to the dogs. So good family unit or not, the people who voted Remain don't actually get the help they should. So don't leave it to his goodwill. Make sure it's structured, written down, and accountable.
This is a Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Our telephone 0719-012-600. Also on Facebook, Spice FM KE, and Twitter, Spice FM KE. We're opening up the phone lines now. We'd love you to participate in the conversation. How should we vet our leaders?
Calling all homeowners present and future. It's time to live your dream in your dream home. Whether you're looking to buy or simply renovate it. From Friday 27th to Sunday 29th of September 2019, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., come on over and be part of the Owner Home Expo at KICC, courtesy of the Standard Group in partnership with The Property Show. Get to interact with home developers, real estate representatives, financial advisors, as well as other private and public players in the market to help you realize your home goals. It's your window of opportunity. Your door has finally opened and entry for all will be absolutely free. Owner Home Expo.
Find a home.
How well do you know your country? Given a chance, where would you go? Not so many places, huh? Would you even know how to get there? Yes? No? Maybe? I don't know. Well, oh ye gallivanters and tourists alike, here is your chance to not only know, but also visit amazing destinations in Kenya with complete recommendations, guides, and tips on accommodation spots, wellness stops, and food joints all over Kenya. How you ask? Courtesy of the biggest locally targeted tours and travel magazine, Travelog. Travelog is your monthly pull-out magazine in the Standard newspaper every first Thursday of the month. With Travelog, enjoy the beauty of life that Kenya has to offer. Visit exotic and hidden destinations, be part of amazing conservation campaigns and projects as you simply enjoy Kenya. It's our way of putting Kenya on the map. Grab your copy and be aboard the fun wagon as you improve the quality of your local travel experiences. Travelog. Jione Kenya. Tired of living your same old life? Need to spice it up and add some flavor? Well, we can help you go from living to living it up. East Africa, are you ready to be a part of the most vibrant entertainment scene with the best, freshest music, travel tips and destinations, fashion, tech and health trends, as well as your favorite celebrities' lifestyles? Introducing your favorite entertainment magazine, Pulsar, the ultimate all-in-one guide that will give you more meaning to life. Catch up with your celebrity writers and contributors to stay up to date with what's happening around you, where and how you can be a part of all that. The lifestyle guide that has been missing in your life. Pulsar. Live it up.
98.7 Spice FM, Mombasa. Traffic.
We can finally say that everything around us is moving pretty smoothly, apart from the Thika Superhighway, where we have still a problem and people are definitely saying a prayer, trying to get into the CBD. Everything else seems to be moving along as expected for this time of the morning. You'll definitely get where you're going eventually. You should have woken up earlier if you're still stuck, but hey, this is a situation that we find ourselves in. Anything spectacular or anything out of the ordinary, don't hesitate to let us know. Or if you find an alternate route for those who are stuck on Thika Superhighway this morning, please do let us know and we'll spread the word. 0719-012-600.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
3 minutes to 10 o'clock. You're in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. In the room, we have Jerry Thorne, C.T. Muga, Ndu Oko, and I'm Eric Latif. We are discussing the family values and choice of leadership. How should we vet our leaders? Is family management an important indicator? And this, Ndu, you're picking from the issue that we've seen in public, playing out in public domain of leaders and inheritance and succession issues. And they're basically showing us that this person, when they were alive, they had not tied all the loose ends together.
And we had now this showing itself in the public arena. And it's not the first of the cases that we've seen, specifically with this young lady who passed on and was not able to access her family's resources because of the endless court cases. I mean, like we talked about before, we've had cases that have been in court for almost decades, 4 decades. We've had cases like that and continue to find themselves into the mainstream media. And what are we saying in this sense is that how then do we choose people who are coming in positions of public office? And unfortunately, we don't vet them on that level. We don't vet them on how they're able to control or manage their private lives. We're only able to do this performance after these situations come out, or if we even do that kind of performance. So is this something that we should have written down in the form of contracts? Is this how we should say now that we're going to hold you against what you've signed and said you would be able to deliver? Or are we able to say, look, based on your private life, this is then now how we expect you to run public office, and then not put you into that position at all? Can we use those as benchmarks?
Jerry is a lawyer here. Remember, our law allows us to impeach our leaders. I presume there has to be a benchmark from which the impeachment process can begin. And I'm saying is, fine-tune it. When you have a contract, if someone is in abrogation of that particular contract, you will know. So meaning, this is what we brought you in to do, and we expect you to do it. Right now, we don't have any such thing. How do we hold our leaders accountable?
And we only see the mess after, unfortunately, an individual has passed on.
How do we? When a speaker of the National County Assembly disagrees with the MCAs, they will want to impeach them. On that, when we don't like our MCA and we do not like what he's doing, how do we get rid of him? The Constitution allows you to, but that process, it makes it...
It's a long one.
It makes it not near impossible. We saw people in Embu trying to get rid of the governor, and they really took that matter far. We saw Makueni, they even tried it. I'm simply saying that if you want leaders to be accountable, do not rely on the goodwill or the good nature. That is not what's going to get you what you want. The accountability has to be something that is actionable. And I'm saying, get a written contract.
But then, seriously, I talked about the 2-year election cycles for local governments. I think that goes
Still,
so
but what are you vetting them on?
Get a contract.
What would you be vetting them on before you elect them? So before you elect them, they're coming to tell you, this is what I'm going to do. And each of them is coming to tell you, this is what I'm going to do.
Yes.
So what else are you using to vet them?
You've told us what you want to do. We would have hoped you would come to us first and for us to tell you what we need. Okay? You want to build us a school. We don't need a school. We have a school. We want piped water. So can we get that one first? We have a road from this and this. We want this order. Can this... Meaning, these are measurable things. I'm not talking about things that are not measurable. They're measurable. If you go to the basic level of a ward, they know what they need. And that's what you judge the performance on. And you know what an MCA can do and what he cannot do.
Often MCAs, although people who are campaigning, they'll come and tell you they will do exactly what you need. Because they live within the community. They know this problem, this road between here and there has been problematic for us forever. So they come and promise that they're going to make sure that this road is actually carpeted.
Yes.
Or they know we don't have a market here. They're going to make sure that this market is going to be constructed. Yes. They know very well we don't have a functioning health facility. They say, I'll make sure that a health facility is brought up here. So they start from that point. They live within the community and they know the pain points of the community. So they use that as a sweetener. So now I'm asking, how shall we now vet them before we even go to the ballot? So once we elected them, we are like, all right, so we've elected you and we picked you and this is what you said you're going to do. We're going to be judging you on this. But before that, how do we vet?
Well, from a legal perspective, of course, they're all subject to integrity, Article 6. Whether or not we put that into practice is a different question. But can I propose that maybe we do vet them, and these are our standards, that this is sort of symptomatic
It's
or
our
expressive of who we are. We're okay with this.
It's what
This is a
exists.
reflection of our society. Maybe we are vetting them. We don't need to be prescriptive and say, actually, you should look at how a man carries, out his personal affairs. Maybe people have done that and they really couldn't give a toss. They don't care, or if they do care, they're okay with that standard. So maybe it's the standard of the electorate that needs to change. It's us as a society. Maybe this is emblematic. It's more a reflection of us as the electorate.
It is. Because actually, you're right, Jerry. I think we actually do vet. The conversation that happens
It's
is
just
so
the
and so.
standards that we've
our
set
standards
them.
are different. You'll hear in certain areas somebody who is a female candidate, people will start when they're asking those questions, is she married, is she not?
They're
That's a
vetting.
vetting
They're
process.
vetting,
If they're talking about this man, this man was married to 4 different wives, you see how he mistreated their younger wife. That's vetting. There are some things that we do to vet. Maybe what you're talking about is harmonizing those ones and seeing some of them are actually indicators. Maybe we should add these ones also into vetting
Yeah,
process.
and maybe not be so subjective where things are intuitive, and perhaps also not be so harsh on women. I think when it comes to vetting them from a social perspective, they're judged a lot more rigorously than men are. I think
They are
especially
hypocritically so.
when it comes to their private lives. you know.
They do.
It's a lot harder for
They
women.
Yeah,
If
they're
we're
held to
looking to
higher-
encourage,
definitely held to higher account in terms of what you've done with your personal life, and how will that affect what you will do in your
it
public
isn't
life.
high, it's hypocritical. Men are not held to account. Men are not held by similar standards.
Not at all.
In fact, you would argue there are even no standards.
There are no standards at
From
all.
Yes.
So long as you promise that you're able to do something, then come on, let's go along with it and see how far
Even
you can
not
push
promise.
this.
Who was it who mentioned? One of our callers in. It's the lady who called in first. This is a person who has been in that position. So she wasn't theorizing.
Right.
And she was saying, you can bring in all the development you want. If you don't give handouts, they are not going to vote you in.
Right.
Yes, but I didn't ask the question, who encourages it?
which came first.
Yes, if you start your campaign on a platform of handouts, well, then you're done for.
I think what it is because a lot of leaders have come in and made promises for development projects and they never materialize. These guys are like, I'd rather take my 200 bob
This is
anyway. So
exactly
it's
what
not,
I said
maybe you're right. It's
previously.
not that they don't know what they want. They do know what they want. In some instances,
whoa.
no.
Wait,
That's exactly
wait,
what I
wait,
said.
wait.
And I was
No. And
I
this
want to
is
hear
not a
this
blanket
again. Yes,
statement. It's
I want
not
to
a
hear this
blanket
again.
statement, and it doesn't
This is-
negate from the position that I haven't revised my position in any way, shape,
Oh.
or form. I'm just saying in this instance, with this particular statement that you were making, I now see what you were saying. The electorate does know what they want, so they do want the development projects, but they
but it has
know
never
that
happened.
They know that they won't be delivered.
Yes.
So here,
So
I'll
they
take
ask
my
for the money.
200 bob.
Yes, and that's
but
what I was saying.
going further and suggesting they don't know what development projects they would need.
They do know.
Look, that's what I said before.
They
You
do
have projects that have been initiated in the past, and that's why I said, when did we get into this handout kind of business? When we're looking at that is how I'll now use and judge and now be able to elect my leader. Previously, before this was the case, or before this was the situation, you expected your leader to come and actually have some of these things established. That never happened. And so now here they come and they offer you this amount and they say, hey, look, this is what I'm able to get now. I'm going to take it. You come and you promise me this. I do not know that it's actually going to happen. I do not know that it will materialize because of the historical experience that I have. So I will take 200, 500, 1,000 shillings from you because I know that is what I'll be able to get for me to be able to do something immediate. In the future, if you promise me something like that, I do not know that I will get it. So let me take what I can take now. And that is where all of this began. I am sure that if you go to these areas where we actually see some kind of development happening, they're not so big on the 500 or the 200 because they can actually see the effects of what this person said they were going to come in and do, and it is actually working. So you'll find that if you come into those areas and try to bribe them with 200, they'll say, thank you very much, but our leader is actually doing this. The person in the position is actually giving us what we need.
You see, what
So
is
we don't need your
unfortunate-
handouts.
They may still take it. Kula kwa CT, kura kwa ndu.
They have that
It-
clarity.
it's
They are
very
that
clear.
They're clear. They're clear. Okay. You're right, Eric. They're not going to refuse the money, but they're very clear who they're going to vote for.
They'll still vote for the other person who is
you
actually
see,
delivering for
that's
them.
That's a brave politician who has made a stand and stuck by it. And the people coalesce and figure, wait a moment. Actually, this guy is actually doing what he said he's going to do. So let's stop bothering about the 200. It happens. Remember, the governor of Makueni even got shot at for his efforts. Remember?
You gotta love Kenya.
Not once. And he had the last laugh because, with the exception, I think, of one MCA, every other MC, those people who opposed him, the voter rejected all of them. So now he came in with a fresh, powerful mandate, and now he could continue doing what he wanted to do. But remember, he's also the first governor who said, okay, we don't seem to be agreeing. Let's go back to the
people.
Yes, go back to the people and hear what it is they
Let's
have
take it
to
back to
say.
the people. Let's hear what they have to say about this.
CT, in the previous hour, you actually also mentioned another example. That was Otichilo.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
When this gentleman was MP, okay, the one thing he was known for, Wilberforce, he was known for not giving handouts. He was famous for it. And he was not a one-term MP. He had a second term with those same principles. And yet, MPs around him kept being changed.
Yeah.
Yes. And he then went and became governor. He hasn't changed. No, he hasn't. His constituency is a small constituency, yes. But arguably, you could say this is a man who actually focuses on what he can do. He actually changed the behavior and the thinking of his people by the stand he made. So he got them to see things from his point of view.
He was very clear.
He was very, very clear. So it isn't that it can't be done. Politicians choose the easy way out. It seems easier to have new 50 bob shillings to dish out. I argue that the politicians do this for themselves, to make you feel like you're doing something.
Yeah.
It's for you. You're the man who gives.
You don't think it has any consequence on the voters'
It has
choice?
terrible consequences. It has terrible, horrible consequences.
Well, for starters, they're in debt, and even their salary at that position can't pay back what they've borrowed to.
Look at the vicious cycle of it. That's why you find people getting involved in dicey deals, funny things, committees within parliament being accused of being compromised. That's what happens because
toilet deals.
Yes, compromise means somebody has offered you money and you've accepted it.
Right.
Okay? So whatever you had wanted to do goes out of the window. Now, that wouldn't arise, and the frequency of it wouldn't be so obvious if this constant need they have for money. Because in all honesty, when MPs ask for more money, they need it, to be honest. It's not for fun. They actually need it.
They're broke.
They're broke. They don't have money. They need it. So you may think, it's a lot of money to you, but they are broke.
But you yourself, CT, you sat on that very chair and said to us that Kenyans understand politics and leaders differently. We looked at Sonko and he said he donates buses when it comes to funerals. He sends ambulances. He sends fire engines and so on.
Yes, it
and
does.
that is what Kenyans want to see.
Yes.
And isn't that the same as Kenyans wanting these handouts?
You know something? When you're talking about a system that broke down a while back and hasn't been fully rectified, and then someone actually just provides a service that the government was supposed to provide in the first place, that person is seen as the person who actually understands their need. Now, funerals come with costs of money. So if someone says, here's a little money for the upkeep or for entertaining the visitors who come for the whatever, you contextualize it, somebody will say, this guy knows what he's doing. We are talking about people whose MO
just to buy votes.
Yes, and to constantly, they come for a funeral and they're dishing out money. They come for this, they're dishing out money. They go here, they're dishing out
churches,
money. They're dishing out money.
They're tanga,
they're dishing out money. That one.
Those ones.
Yes, and people know. And as a lady mentioned here about measuring the diameter of your tire, if you drive some of those big cars and you're in the rural areas and you stop at a marketplace, without doing anything, you will be surrounded.
Yeah, immediately.
Immediately. And people start calling you Mheshimiwa. Some don't know who you are.
Boss.
They all sort of all sort of titles are thrown at you.
I've seen that. I saw that in Kimilili.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that.
You've seen that,
yeah,
yes.
I've seen that.
And they
What did they
crowd.
call you? Did they call you Mheshimiwa?
It wasn't me. I happened to be with a former Mheshimiwa, yes, and they it was actually quite intimidating.
Actually, the crowd doesn't form. They even stand in front of the car. You have to stop. And you'll even see a lady who can barely walk trying to do a miracle of running.
Yep.
Okay? Because that car represents money that they could get for free. And
immediate money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Remember, I also once mentioned this show that when someone calls you Mzee or Mheshimiwa,
There's an ensuing expectation.
Yes. No, they're actually priming you.
Yeah,
and they're telling you, I have worked. I have given the respect that you want. Now pay me.
Oh, yeah.
Bring.
Chief. Hi, Mudos.
You can be 20 years old, and if they think you have money, you'll be called Mzee.
Oh, yes.
So it's not confusing then how we actually do put our leaders up in the...
we put them there so they can fork out.
It's a reflection of who we are.
Of who we
Remember,
are. So that's what
I still hold my
saying.
position. The electorate know what they're doing, and they are the ones who keep the politicians running around. Politicians think they keep the electorate running around. Sorry, it's not true. It's the electorate that keeps the politician running around.
Should we
So
as the
then-
electorate then change a bit and start
Right,
looking
because
at...
then can we demand, we cannot then come and demand something different from what we've actually put there, because we've made the decision to put them there. Can we now then come and say we want something else? At the end of the day, said, no, you know what, this individual did not necessarily give me what I wanted, or did not perform to the level that I expected them to have performed, or did not put in those markers that I expected to have seen in my community, in my region, in my country. Can we then now put them to task and say, you actually did not do this, whereas I'm the one who put you in? What did I expect?
Performance contracting aside, you and Jerry have actually stated it. Please remember that the behavior change intervention that we've seen here are two examples of people who refuse to give money. They force you to change. You're not, you can ask them if you like, but they won't give you.
Yep.
And it's consistent to the point you realize this guy is never going to give us money anyway.
For over 30 years, the people over there didn't know any different.
Yeah, thank you.
Moi Kibaki.
He didn't give you a cent. Whether you woke up early in the morning, it didn't really matter.
Yep.
When he became president, he even announced it. He announced it and said, by the way, it's not going to happen.
Handouts, zero.
Yes, and yet the man's track record was exemplary.
Still
I mean, it's subject of many debates, but it was exemplary.
Can I also maybe suggest that by not having your house in order, it doesn't mean that you're not a moral, upright, good citizen. It might just be some things went wrong. They could be
The environment?
Indeed.
Yeah, because we've
well,
taken
consider-
this
yeah.
and we've run with it, and we've said because you didn't have your house in order, you can't be a good leader.
Then you're a bad person.
Yeah,
or it infiltrates in how you're going to operate in public office.
Okay, when I say, let's put it this way, because you hadn't sorted out your inheritance, it doesn't mean you didn't have your house in order. For you to have an inheritance worth fighting over, you must have done
Some
quite
things
well.
were managed well.
generally.
Yeah, indeed.
Actually, you know, when I look at, you mentioned Mwai Kibaki. Jomo Kenyatta was not famous for dishing out money. Raila Odinga is not famous for dishing out money. And these were very exemplary leaders. Now,
it's proper leadership. This dishing out money, buying allegiances, they won't last.
They never do they?
They won't last, that's for sure.
You can't buy respect. You can't buy certain things. You can't go into churches tangaing everyone and giving money and hoping to buy
buy
those
respect. You can even lease it.
That's what no, you can only lease it. You can only lease it. It's got a very short shelf life. It's got a very
You
short
can
shelf
buy
life.
love. You can lease love. I mean, come on. Some of these things at a certain level are commodities. And they do have a price tag.
Money can buy you anything.
But they
apart
have
from life.
they have a short shelf
Almost.
life. They're
Almost everything.
notwithstanding all things. You see, like Baba's support, for instance, no matter what happens, he will have that support.
Yes.
But with somebody like Ruto, if you're buying it, if somebody comes with more money,
You're done.
Absolutely.
You're done.
Or if you don't have money on that day, no, I'm talking about Baba as in Raila.
Oh, not Baba number one.
No,
So
Baba
even
as
for
in
Baba
Raila.
number one, he still has it. You know, at 90, what is he now? 96? Was he celebrating the other
You
day?
see, this is the beauty. This is the beauty of having allowed in a system of continuity. He is reaping the benefits of it.
Right.
He is held in very high esteem, and he will continue to be held in high esteem because he allowed in a process that other presidents of his time didn't. And yet he did, and that's why we are here today.
Yep.
Yes.
We've gotten where we are. 0719-012-600. I had a caller who was Peter calling in from Nakuru, and then he got disconnected. Peter, you can call back. We'd like to hear what you had to say on air. 0719-012-600. On Facebook, Spice FM KE, and on Twitter, Spice FM KE. A couple of comments I can see on Facebook. Ndu, you can read one or two? Because on Twitter, there is somebody who's saying, hey, I like what you guys are saying this morning. Yes, indeed, we should consider how we pick our leaders, because how they run their families is an indication of who they are. Also, Migwi says, yes, good morning. I'm liking the conversation. It's not a must that a good leader is also a good domestic manager. You could be better in one thing, but not as good in another.
Sure, just like you might be very good at maths and not English.
Indeed. It doesn't mean you're a bad student. That's what CBC is trying to do, you know? You are good in arts or you're good in sciences.
Actually, I wish it were that simple. It actually
No, of course
isn't.
it isn't. I'm oversimplifying it.
But
because
I like the simplicity of it because it makes the point even clearer. You see, they are called developmental stages for young people, young learners as they call them. And believe me, different people pick up things at different stages. And that's why they have terms like late bloomers. It doesn't mean that when someone is struggling at this phase that later on they will not do well. No. It depends on the development of their brain, the inclination of their brain, what it is the brain picks up quickly. And then people say it depends also on the environment they grew up in because it helps form these things. Anyway, that's a discussion yet for another day.
Indeed. So as we come to the conclusion of the show this morning, it's been a very busy week. We've had a lot that has happened this week. So give us your good, bad, and worst of the week. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
I don't have the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I have is the element of continuity. With many of these topics, we seem to be scratching the surface, and I think our listeners need to understand that we will be delving into greater depths with these topics, and we will bring in people who are responsible for some of the things we talk about in the various fields. So that just like the good governor of Machakos called in, we'll have people of that caliber calling in, and we'll also have people coming into the studio so that when we have the discussion, as we say, we hear it from the horse's mouth.
Do.
Well, I think we looked at a week where many things have happened, some expected, some not so quite unexpected. However, that's what we expect in this country. And I think definitely looking at things at a deeper level is what we can be sure that we do, and really trying to understand what happens around us. It was a good week looking at the politics of things. We see that developing over the weekend. Definitely the next 2 days are going to be interesting to look at. And we'll see how we can look at the underbelly of things for us to understand that even more.
Jerry.
Me. Well, the week's been filled with this murder case, hasn't it, in terms of the headlines?
Yep.
This Tob Cohen's murder case, and there's been, of course, some offshoot stories of that as well coming along. Not much politics, a little bit of Kibra and Mariga, but not as exciting as I expected and hoped it would be. I think that's been the week for me. This murder case, that's where my mind's been in terms of my thoughts, and that's what's dominated my thoughts. So the media does control what we think.
Thank you very much for joining us this week on the Situation Room, in the Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation. Well, let's see what happens over the weekend. I'm sure there's a lot that's going to be said about the Aurora and Kimorero dams. Let's see what happens in Kibra as well. Let's see how the murder case as well unfolds over the next couple of days. Good morning. Have a great weekend. Eric Latif, Ndu Oko, Njeri, Thorn, and CT Muga, we're bidding you goodbye from 3